Let's do this.
And we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Jeremy Scott Gibbs, and this is my brain, and the earwig, as usual, in my brain, Mr. Tony Bradley.
Always a pleasure, brother.
So we were having a little bit of a discussion on the topic that we wanted to go into.
Got to do the disclaimer first.
Well,
man.
all right. Do the disclaimer, buddy. Do the disclaimer, because you know what? There's some people out there that might get a little sensitive on shit. And,
Well, you know,
'cause I said
notice
shit.
this place is politically incorrect. We say Merry Christmas, one nation under God. We salute our flags and give thanks to our troops. If this offends you, leave.
And we also cuss, drink adult beverages,
That's right. Speaking of that,
and we thoroughly enjoy ourselves. What do you got going over there today, Tone?
I'm drinking a little bit of Reds. So I've got
Reds in the...
See, here's the great part about this. I
Yeah.
actually got a bunch of these. It says, I got my drink on pretending to be Irish with 3OF. And got to say, it was a great party.
It was a great party.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers. And I'm drinking one of my favorite drinks, and hopefully they pick us up at some point and start sending me the big bottles, because
Yeah.
I like the Di Serono. It's a good drink. It's
Markham
nice,
for me.
Markham for you.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a
Cabernet.
plethora of drinks that we have, but
Right.
these are our go-tos, you know?
For the most part. I mean, obviously I'm going to crack the bottle tomorrow night when we go live.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, you'll be watching this after we go live. I'm not sure how the schedule works just yet.
What we're going to do, I want to do this as a series.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to do a series of, and I've got them over there on the wall. I don't know if there's a shot that catches the wall. Is
shot, Nate?
there a shot that catches the wall? You know what? Do your
No,
overhead.
there's not a shot.
What about the overhead?
Do your overhead, see if it catches.
A little bit.
Okay.
it's over there.
See over there in the bottom corner, over there on one of my doors, is, let's see, there's 24, 22, 24? 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 24 logical fallacies over there on the door. And I've grown up just by nature,
Right.
living my life by it's like I will do something and then I'll hear somebody argue.
Yeah.
Well, you've known me for a lot of time. I can argue with somebody and just it cannot go pretty. In fact, when I wasn't in the best place personally, I could shred people
All day.
all day.
All day.
And in fact, sometimes I would use a logical fallacy
Yeah.
because I knew I was wrong.
Right.
And I would shred them.
Of course.
And then I would be like, wow, you are a dick. And then, so I had to grow and learn through that. But
Right.
I've always known about logical fallacies, whether I knew the actual terminology or something. Somebody will say something and I'll go, not
Yeah.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to go through all 24 of these, or at least probably a good 20 of them, because some of them can tend to be a little redundant.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do a couple more. But so think of this as, episode 1 of Logical Fallacies.
Yes.
And this is pre-recorded, so we'll be throwing this one in the mix, as we go along. Because we'll do our regular Saturday live shows and our regular episodes. But I wanted to throw these in.
Yeah, let's start off with the definition of that.
Okay, so the one we want to start with today, and it's not the first one on the list over there, but I want to start with this one, and I do have to get the glasses.
Your
So
cheat is on, mate.
I got my cheaters on. I want to start with appeal to authority, or they say another way of saying it is argument from authority.
Right.
And from Wikipedia, which is an okay one to go for on this one because they're not going to jack it up too much. But they say it's a form of defensible argument in which a claimed authority's support is used as evidence for the argument's conclusion. So the example is that because this authority figure says this, it has to be true. Therefore, it's true.
It's overinflated opinion and ego.
Yeah. So historically, opinions on appeal to authority have been divided. It is listed as a valid argument as often as a fallacious argument in various sources. So there's some people that appeal to it and go, well, it can't be a fallacious argument because, all these people agree to it, right?
Right.
And other people will say, well, no, it's absolutely. So they can swing both ways.
Right.
So the appeal to authority can be you disregard whatever an authority figure says, or
Right.
you have to agree with what everybody says. I just thought of another one I got to write down.
Well,
so
you're saying if Chicken Little's the authority, then
the sky is
the
falling.
sky is actually falling.
Yeah, and you better get your ass together because you're gonna get
All right.
taken out.
Well, I don't follow Chicken Little, and
Right.
never have, and I'm not about to start. So I don't care.
There was a
if
good example in this one. I'm gonna scroll up. Oh, there they are. Yeah, exactly.
You find it?
I was looking for the ones that were up on the board.
Yeah.
Watch this. I'm bookmarking that page. You said that because an authority thinks something,
Yeah.
it must therefore be true.
No.
It's important to note that this fallacy should not be used to dismiss the claims of experts or scientists' consensus. Appeals to authority are not valid arguments, but nor is it reasonable to disregard the claims of the experts who have a demonstrated depth of knowledge unless one has a similar level of understanding or knowledge. However, it is entirely possible that the opinion of a person or institution of authority is wrong, and therefore the authority that such a person or institution holds does not have an intrinsic bearing upon whether their claims are true or not.
So you're saying education and knowledge of said claim, because you've taken the time to educate yourself with it and gain knowledge about it, because you've studied it, is going to help you form a better opinion based off the actual facts instead of someone who is the leading scientist in all of this. All I can think of is the movie Ghostbusters.
Right.
When, what was it, Peck?
Yeah.
Comes in and he's telling the mayor about, oh, this is this and this is that. And, I mean, of course, it's a stupid movie.
Right.
But the premise is these guys are going, look, this is what's going on.
Right. You better check it out.
Check this out.
Right.
Don't take our word for it. Go educate yourself.
And that's my main point about this.
Right.
The number one problem with an appeal to authority is people go to an authority figure or they cite an authority figure and they've never done any research themselves.
Right.
That authority, and part of the arguments that we're reading here is they're saying that sometimes the authority figure may be absolutely true, so you
course.
can't discount them.
Yeah.
Other times they may be absolutely false, and you have to discount them. But the problem is most people don't do their own damn research
Right.
to find out what is true. And that's the main problem. So I was thinking about a number of things, but I want to point out a couple. If we talked about JFK,
Right.
right?
Inside job.
Inside job. We know there's stuff. We don't know exactly all the details,
Right.
But it's not cut and dry. Now, one of the things that I've studied JFK. I've studied all of
Yeah.
it. I've watched. You and I have both watched a lot
Yeah.
of stuff behind the scenes, a lot of documentaries. There's been a lot of really good guys, and there's guys that say, well, they can make the shot. And there's other people that, they could do this. And there's all the arguments. And I, JFK, the movies, one of my movies in my collection.
Yeah.
And I even threw it on the other night just to, have in the background. I really enjoy the movie. But, and Oliver Stone took some very
Creative liberties.
creative liberties with it. I mean, one of my absolute favorite character. In fact, this is how much I liked him. And I don't know if you remember me doing this. I took JFK. I had it was VHS at the time.
Probably then.
Okay. And I ran the audio out, ran it into the tape deck, and I literally recorded Mr. X's dialogue, his
yeah.
whole speech walking through Washington.
Yeah.
With and I would listen to that. I would pop that in every once in a while and listen to it in the car because the way that he breaks it down,
Yeah, I remember that.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
And he's totally made up. Mr.
course.
X, that never happened. That walk through Washington never happened.
Yeah.
But L. Fletcher Prouty,
Okay.
who that character is based upon,
Yeah.
and who consulted on the movie,
Right.
and who actually wrote letters to the district attorney, to Kevin Costner's character,
Yeah. Yeah.
was real. So when we say creative license, he took the letters and he took the man himself who was consulting on the movie, and he made a composite of him,
Right.
and broke down all of the information that he gave him over time into one dialogue walking through
Yeah.
Washington. And I think that's actually brilliant, to bring the story about. But my point is, we question that.
Of course.
And the official narrative was no. And there's scenes in that movie too where it's like, you only heard 3 shots. You heard echoes, and,
Right.
and it's dramatic. But the point is that that's an example of appeal to authority. The authority figures are saying, this is the way it is. How can you announce, and I love that in the dialogue with Donald Sutherland when he's being Mr. X, and he's talking about, he's like, I'm in New Zealand coming back on a flight, and it's in their newspapers.
Yeah.
With this studio photo and all this other stuff, and
Yeah.
that was true.
Yeah.
And he goes, and they weren't even sure for sure
Yeah.
that he was the guy. They hadn't even charged him. They wouldn't even charge him with Tippett's death
Right.
for another so many hours. But yet, he's the man who killed the president. He's the assassin.
Of course.
And it's like, whenever you have that absolute rush to judgment,
Yeah.
I automatically throw up a flag. But the premise comes back to the appeal to authority. That's what they're relying upon. It's like, what is the harm of doing the full investigation?
It's the left hand's doing something while the right hand's doing something else.
Exactly.
And it's all clouded in conspiracy, yet when you look at the facts and go, okay, what was it, Lee Harvey Oswald?
Yeah.
He said himself,
He's just a patsy.
Yeah, he's just a patsy.
Right.
Not only in the movie, but he actually said it in
The
the interview.
Gary Oldman studied all of the
Yeah.
video transcripts so he could repeat that.
Right.
And if you set them side by side,
Right.
Gary Oldman is Lee Harvey. He does a
Oh, yeah.
phenomenal job.
Incredible job.
Absolutely. But my point in all of this is there's this argument from authority, or this appeal to authority, that
Right.
if an authority figure says it, then it has to be true and you can't question.
Right.
So Al Gore gets up and talks about global warming. And then they bring all the scientists who are all under the payroll or all have skin in the game that if they disagree with this, but every scientist that is retired
Right.
and studies it independently comes
Right.
back and goes,
That's
it's bullshit.
Straight up bullshit.
Yeah, and all the things that we're trying to. So all of our government officials right now that tell us that the current one is that the world's going to end in 12 years if we don't dramatically do all this stuff. And I go, no. And they tell us CO2 is the problem. And I go, wait a minute. I remember being taught in high school science class that CO2 is what plants breathe. And the more CO2, the more plants, because they're going to take that and process it and use it for fuel. Right. And so what are you saying? Right. That we need to get rid of CO2, so you want to kill all the plants. That makes sense. But it's an appeal to authority.
Of course.
It's another one. So JFK, global warming, 9/11.
Yeah.
Right? We can't question 9/11.
It's an inside job.
It was the biggest crime scene in modern history.
Right.
And they took the steel immediately and shipped it overseas to have it melted down and processed.
Of course.
Now there's some monuments here and there.
Right.
I know right over where we live, there's a fire station with
Yep.
one of the steel pieces, right?
Yep.
But it took the independent people getting a hold of the pieces to go in and find the thermite and find the other things that were actually there. Okay.
Right.
But they shipped. That's the amazing. They shipped all of the steel. That's a crime scene.
Right.
If a plane goes down, they find every shred of that plane, put it in a warehouse, painstakingly put it together.
Yep.
I literally have it over there because one of the books that I'll
Yeah.
eventually publish. You've read some of my
Yeah.
excerpts from my books, but one of the books that I've written involves a plane crash.
Yeah.
Heroes of, what did I title it? Anyways, it's Heroes of a Flight. Anyways,
Yeah.
I literally read the NTSB manual
Yeah.
for what when a plane goes down, what their action manual is, how the FBI comes in, how all the other agencies come in and have to
Wasn't
coordinate.
that some of the paperwork we were going through today?
No,
Binders?
that's a Hilti magazine or Hilti manual.
Well, and that I completely agree with you on that, because it's one of those things. Is I'll go a little closer to home, and I mean no disrespect or speaking out of turn with this, but you know, Hawaii, Pearl Harbor.
Yeah,
You know, they knew
something was up.
something was up.
Yeah,
And did nothing.
right.
And all of these soldiers that I have so much respect and integrity and honor for,
Yeah,
that they were serving in one of the most beautiful places in the world.
right,
These guys were still sleeping, man.
right. Well, and to act like there was nothing going on, like
Right.
there wasn't doing. Listen, we cut off we weren't in the war, right? And we needed a catalyst to get into the war, or we weren't going to
course.
be in the war, which is the constitutional opinion that we should have, right?
Right.
We need to be isolationists,
Right.
And people don't like that, right? No. I don't want any of my buddies. We got a buddy that served in Egypt and served in Iraq.
Yeah.
And I don't want him there.
Right.
Why are we there?
Right.
You know, Iraq, Afghanistan, all these. We got 180 bases around the world. Dude, you should be here protecting. Not only, I even say we should be here protecting our borders. The reality is the Constitution said we should have no standing army except in times of war. So they've had a constant declaration of war, reoccurring every presidency, and
Right.
then even more.
Now, where's that at in the Constitution? Because I remember reading it, but for some of the viewing audience and the listeners and whatnot,
They're gonna have to look it up because I don't have my pocket Constitution on me right now. But
me either.
say, if candy goes over on my shelf over there, I think there's no. I know it's over there. I carry one of those pocket Constitutions, right?
So do I. It's in my junk bag.
Yeah, so it's over there on the shelf. And I would reference it real quick. But anyways, that's the point.
Yeah.
Is there's not supposed. So look that up. Look that up on
Yeah.
your own. Look that up on your own.
Yeah, over here.
But we're not supposed to have a standing army,
Right.
except in times of war. So since Vietnam, really since Korea, because they took all of the invasion
Yep.
equipment from World War II,
Yep.
and they transferred it over to. Are you checking him? We're doing a little bit of adjustment over here. Nate can't see. But they took all of the equipment from the invasion that was supposed to happen in Japan, and they went. They took that to Korea and Vietnam. They took the millions of dollars of equipment that they had,
Yep.
and they split it up, and part of it went to Korea and part of it went to Vietnam.
Yep.
Most people don't know that.
Oh, yeah.
They think Vietnam started in the late 60s.
No.
Dude, we were there in the 50s.
Read your history.
Exactly, and and they came out and admitted that the Gulf of Tonkin, which was the catalyst to get into
Right.
Vietnam War,
Right.
was a lie. It never happened. And so when you start to go through all these things, you go, wait a minute. After you've lied to me and you've lied to me and you've lied to me and you lied to me,
Why am
then
I still
should-
gonna believe you?
I should take the position that you're going to lie to me.
Yeah.
And that's where the argument or appeal to authority comes in, is
Right.
because people go back there and go, well, it's the government. They wouldn't lie to us. No. Listen, your doctor
Yeah.
is an appeal to authority because he wears a white coat. He's gonna. No. If I don't have a relationship with this person,
Right.
I've got a doctor that I'm friends with. Okay,
Yeah.
he's not my doctor, but he's
Right.
my doctor.
Right.
I call him doc, and if I ever need things, because I don't go to the doctor very often.
Yeah, just
right?
like your hockey buddies call you preach.
Exactly. So, Dr. Kevin, I play hockey with him.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I got an ache or pain or something that I can't just work through and it heals up in a week or two, I go, hey, doc, what do you think about this? And he'll gladly do that. And Tanya's went and seen him actually
Right.
officially.
Right.
But most of the time you go to see doc, and we had a great discussion. One night I played a partial season of soccer.
Okay.
He runs marathons, he plays soccer, he does,
Oh, so he's in shape.
oh my God, he is cut. we tease him because he's a beautiful man. He is cut.
Really?
I mean,
Okay.
he's my age, so he's 46, 47, somewhere around then. Him and his wife are both great people.
Right.
And he's just cut.
He's
like,
swole.
dude, he does marathons. I mean, full-blown marathons.
Wow, that's
on a
crazy.
regular basis, and plays hockey, and plays soccer, and has a full-time practice. He's a OBGYN. So
He's
he
a
d-
machine.
So he delivers babies and does all that stuff. But
Right.
anyways, I had a great discussion with him one night. I said, Doc, talk to me about how do you feel? I said, I got to know you.
Right.
I know your philosophy, and I obviously know your wife. She's taken a little bit of a step back from practicing,
Okay.
and she's doing more training.
Yeah.
And she's doing some seminar stuff. Last time I talked to her.
That's cool.
But she's highly against abortion and against. She's not. I'd have to ask all of her philosophy about vaccination and stuff like that.
Of course, yeah.
But so I said to Doc, I said, "What do you what's about vaccines?" Because the normal doctor in the lab coat says you got to have them. Got to have them. They're putting out all these freaking commercials now. Mm-hmm. Got to have the vaccines. Got to have the vaccines. If you don't have the vaccine, if you don't, and here's the appeal to authority, right?
Right.
They go, if you don't get your kid vaccinated, all the other kids are at risk. And we go, wait a minute. All the other kids are vaccinated, right? Well, yeah. Well, then how would my kid not being vaccinated affect your kids that are vaccinated? Isn't the vaccine supposed to protect you from whatever it is?
Right.
Well, and if you look it up. Dude, the amount of money they make in the vaccine market is obscene.
It's stupid.
And so they push it and push it and push it and push it and push it. And they don't question it.
Well, and here's the thing is it's not mandated for the purity of what the vaccine actually is. There were so many studies done about, 15 years ago, I think it was, that the studies that they had come out for vaccines that were shipped weren't even checked off the list for the FDA.
Right.
So not monitored, not checked, no quality control whatsoever.
Right.
Just, we've imported this from
Well, do you know why that is?
Right.
Because a vaccine is in place if there's an epidemic or a pandemic, right?
Right.
So the vaccine falls under that umbrella that we're not going to do clinical trials,
right,
and we're not going to test this because we may have to do it overnight and get it into the market in order for somebody to survive. And so if there's an outbreak of some kind, we can't go through all the normal regulations to bring this to market.
Right.
So now they're doing that with all the shit, all the other viruses.
Right.
They're not testing them. They're not doing all that stuff. Right. And when you read the inserts and it tells you that you could die from this and you could have all this other stuff, and they go, oh, but you need to. And they literally walk in.
Oh, yeah.
And they go, well, you're going to need to have this. You're going to need to. Yeah. It's like, dude.
I get shit from.
Well, and it's literally an appeal to authority.
I don't see these doctors anymore, but I have a couple of specialists that I see. And it's hilarious because they come walking in, and it's their job, instructed by the insurance companies for basically,
which is another
legalized extortion.
Yeah, there's an appeal to money there. Yeah.
The issue is, and it's so funny because my doctor come in, they'd be like, "Hey, you need to get a flu shot." I'm like, "Why?" Every time I get the flu shot, I get the flu.
Right.
I'm not okay with that.
Right.
Well, your insurance is going to cover. I don't give a shit.
But that's money.
Right.
That's their thing. And the white lab coat.
My dude doc comes in. I love her. She's like, "Hey, you want a flu shot?" I'm like, "Fuck no, I don't want that stupid shit. I'm healthy.
Right.
I don't need a legitimate reason to get a vaccine that's going to make me sick."
Right.
And she's like, "All right, cool, check."
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What is a vaccine for? A vaccine, in principle, is supposed to stimulate. It's supposed to be a weakened or dead version of whatever disease or virus or whatever it is, right?
Right.
And the vaccine is supposed to give you that, build up your antibodies.
Help your immune system.
Help your immune system get built up by giving you a weakened or dead version of the virus so your body recognizes it but isn't overwhelmed by it and destroyed by it.
Right. That's the way it's supposed to be.
So the reality is, if you've already got a healthy immunity, why would I need this crap in my system?
Right.
Because I haven't had the flu. I had the flu last year, right? Just because we were outside, we were doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But other than that, you know me, I don't get sick.
Here's the issue I have with all of that is the fact that they base it off some sort of crazy algorithm, and I'm paraphrasing very poorly, so don't quote me on this. But the fact that they base it off some sort of algorithm of what is going to be the most probable flu strand.
Yeah.
And then they start building up all of this other stuff.
Right.
Now, what's the first thing that you hear on the news every flu season? Oh, well, there's a new flu strand that's come out because it's mutated. It's evolved.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get a vaccination
that may or may not have any effect on this shit.
that's based off of last year's flu.
Right.
And it has no effect on the new flu strain, but it's going to help me, even though this new one is I mean, that's how you get super viruses. Look that shit up. I am not joking. It's scary as shit.
Right.
Like the staph infection stuff?
Yeah. Oh,
You're
yeah.
in the hospital
my
for
grandfather,
a cold.
My grandfather went in the hospital for a couple different conditions.
Right.
And ended up getting, what's the, not the staph infection or yes. MRSA.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so his legs are all swelled up and
Right.
all sorts of shit. And it's like, you came here and got sick.
Yeah. How fucked up is that? Being
Dude,
at the hospital is
They got, they got a vaccine for chickenpox. Did you have chickenpox as a kid? I had chickenpox. Did you have chickenpox?
Twice.
Twice, right?
Twice.
You're good.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You got it from your buddy.
I actually got it from my sister, so.
Well, I'm saying, but you know, there's these. You send your whoever's kid over
Right.
to the other kids that already have it.
Right.
Your kid gets it.
Right.
He's down for a couple days, not horribly down, just a little bit of itchies and some stuff like that, and then he's done.
First
right?
time wasn't bad for me. The second time, I have chicken pox on top of chicken pox.
Well, the shingles is freaking
Yeah.
chicken pox past adult. You know, when you become an adult.
Yeah.
Right.
It was
So if you don't
obnoxious.
get it, but they've got a vaccine for that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want my kids to build up their natural immunity. We
Right.
fought it on that with my kids.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, no, I really don't want them to get
Right.
all of their shit. You know, and my kids have taken the same tact on it and fought the system on that.
Right.
And it's like this appeal to authority. Well, if you don't get that, you know, you got to get, and then they'll bring in the cop in there and they'll do it. And it's like,
Here's the perspective
what the
I take
hell,
on this.
man?
Ultimately, the decision and the choice is up to you. Before you make a decision, before you submit to that authority, educate yourself. Do the due diligence.
That's the whole point.
Don't sit there and take someone's opinion of, okay, and if you're asking the authority, don't be afraid to ask questions. And if they're not going to answer you, go to somebody else. You have the ability to get a second opinion, a
absolutely.
third opinion, a fourth opinion. And if the facts start to line up that's why I see the doctor that I see right now. Because she is straight up, no bullshit, no chaser of, hey, you should really stop smoking. And I'm like, thanks, Doc, I appreciate that.
True that.
She's like, here's the funny part about it is they don't tell you it's the years at the end when you're trying to breathe through, oxygen and a black lung and all this other stuff. Those are the years that you're supposed to be kind of coasting and gliding because you paid your dues because you took care of your health.
Right.
But yet, I'm eating right.
Yeah.
I'm exercising. I'm doing yoga.
Yeah.
I'm trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle now. And she celebrates all that stuff, except for the smoking stuff. And I think it's great because she's real. She's like, well, obviously you're healthy.
Right.
You're doing all the things you're supposed to be doing.
Except for smoking.
Except for smoking.
Right.
Okay? I appreciate that my doctor's that brutally honest. So she's like, you're a dumbass.
I used to smoke.
Thanks, Doc.
But that's a good thing. And that's where they come down with the argument and they say, this appeal to authority, it's good. Sometimes it's good, sometimes. No, if you have a good relationship and they don't have an agenda.
Right.
Other than your doctor wants you healthy.
Right.
That's
Which is
her
what
agenda.
it's supposed to be.
And they study. Again, I'm going back to a conversation I had with Doc. We sat down, we started talking about vaccines. And I said, how do you feel about that? You deliver babies all the time. What's the deal? How do you feel about that? And he says, you know what? I give them the option. And as soon as they say to me, I'm not really comfortable with that.
Yeah.
He says a lot of times I said, I don't agree with vaccines completely.
Right.
And he goes, you can't go that way. And I go, I understand. There were some vaccines that had some validity years ago.
Right.
And had some efficacy. They were effective.
The polio vaccine.
Right. But now they're still doing it. And the people that have polio now in other countries
Yeah.
are because of the vaccine. There are no polio cases from people that just
Because it
got
was
polio.
eradicated. It was wiped out.
Exactly. But we're going to keep the march. It used to be what was it called? Now it's called the March of Dimes. But it used to be called, it dealt with polio. It was straight up polio.
Yeah.
And then they had, because polio was eradicated, This is all history stuff. See, we're not giving you all of the information and giving you all the footnotes on this because we want you to go look it up. We don't want you to just take our word for it. We want you to go look it up. If you care enough to be curious about the situation, we have technology in our hand. It's amazing to me how stupid people are.
2 pounds.
It's amazing how stupid people are nowadays with the amount of information that we have available to us. It's like you can sit down and sift through the shit.
Right.
That's why the internet people, that's why the Google and all the other guys are suppressing and hiding voices. They don't want Alex Jones. They don't want Mike Adams. They don't want Owen Schroyer. They don't want Gavin McInnes, Proud Boys. They don't want all these guys. And as soon as I said all those names, this one might get flagged and
even Joe Rogan is
Joe Rogan's starting to. Yeah, exactly.
I love the fact that Joe Rogan is not afraid to ask those questions and be unapologetic about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been a huge fan.
Well, they're not
of Joe
going to
Rogan.
shut him down because he's too big.
But that's my point.
I mean, he gets 2-3 million episode no matter who's on.
When you start going back to, it's a conspiracy and this person is blowing the flag on this because there's some sort of scandal or something going on behind the scenes. Okay, fine. That's great. If that's how you want to look at it.
Yeah.
But ask the questions. What is really going on? Educate yourself.
Exactly.
Do the due diligence. Follow the history.
Do not be a lemming and just follow
No.
the bullshit.
I mean, you and I have spent, at least the past 16, 17 years of bouncing stuff that we have learned off of each other of, hey, man.
Yeah.
I remember getting up in the morning, we having breakfast, watching the History Channel. And, of course, the History Channel you got to take with a grain of salt.
Yep. You got to do your own research, but there was some good stuff. You're talking 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
There was, it's like now all they give a shit about is ancient aliens and
but that's the thing, is we still went
antique
back
pickers or
and
whatever the
busted
fuck it
open
is.
encyclopedias and busted open,
and do that. That's the other thing.
Right.
Do your find your stuff.
Yeah.
I have Webster's 1828 original dictionary. You do too.
Yep.
And you can get the app on your phone. I've got
Yes.
the app on my phone.
Absolutely.
Okay. I've got Greek and Hebrew lexicons.
I got those
All
too.
right, because interlinear Bibles sometimes with the Greek in there, they adjust the definitions for the modern times. No, I want to go back to the original words.
Absolutely.
I go back to etymology all the time. Go back to the original one because I want to know what the definition was back then when I want to know what the definition of something was when it was written down.
Right.
Okay? It's like I want to get a dictionary when Shakespeare wrote his stuff down so I can understand what the intent of Shakespeare when not just Gutenberg, but the King James version,
Yes.
which they didn't call the King James version back then. They called the authority, authoritative. No, it was the authorized. That's what I was looking for. Authorized version. It was the authorized version. And I've had these discussions with some pastors, and they're like, if it ain't the King James, it ain't real. And I go, really, which version? Which one of the King James? Because the original 1611 had the Apocrypha in it. So, but you don't have the Apocrypha in yours. I'm flipping through here. I don't see the Apocrypha. I don't see the pseudography. I don't see these other books.
Well, yeah,
Where's Maccabees?
when you do the due diligence on something like that, it's so funny because according to the experts,
The appeal to authority. The
there
arguments
is
from authority.
462 books of the Bible.
Right.
Why do we only have canonized 66?
You and I both go to it's ancient. What is it? Ancient. I have to look up the actual title of it because it's just on
when
here.
you go through the Hebrew, Greek, and English interlinear Bible,
Right.
it's got the broken English translation from the Hebrew and the Greek.
Yep.
And then it's got the what is it? The New King James Version or whatever it is.
Right.
If you're following the broken Hebrew and you're going to the English version of it,
Yeah.
there's words in the Hebrew that there is no translation, or if there is a translation, it's a paragraph in explanation of what that is. And I can't tell you how many times I've sitting there and literally wrote down and transcribed of going, this makes more sense in broken English
Well,
than something does putting...
most people don't realize that Hebrew was lost language. When they were in exile, either in Babylon or in Egypt, they lost the language. And the crazy thing about them losing the language was that, or the crazy thing and then the cool thing. One of the crazy things, they lost their entire language, right? So now they're speaking Aramaic. They're coming into it. But then there was a revival, and they're you can read about it in Hezekiah when they're rebuilding the temple and stuff like that. And I think it was the young king. What was his name? Not Joab.
Drawing a blank, man.
There was a young, and he goes into the temple. They find the remains of the temple. He goes in there. They find the book of the law, and some other books, and he starts reading the prophetic word about him, Josiah. Look that up. Yeah. Don't take my word for it. Look up Josiah. But he starts reading about, and there's this revival of the language.
Yeah.
The awesome thing about Hebrew is it's pictorial.
Yeah.
There's only 22 characters. English has 26.
Yep.
22 characters. There's no vowels in Hebrew.
Yeah.
There's no punctuation, and it's pictorial. And I've done the same thing as you.
Yeah.
Where I sit down and I look at a word and I go, wait, if I take the letters themselves, so
Right.
this word makes up 3 letters, and I take these letters and I see what the meaning of the letter is based on the picture
Right.
that they make.
Right.
So you literally look at it. So alpha, the alpha, the first letter,
Yep.
is literally the horn, or the bull's head
Yeah.
with the horns.
Yeah.
Meaning the head bull.
Right.
So it's the first word. It's the alpha.
Right.
Yeah. And then so every one of those words is pictorial. I'm
Right.
trying to think of the one word that I love to go through, because it literally talks about the 3 letters that make up in Hebrew. It makes it up, means literally the ear or hearing. It's the Lord said.
Yeah.
Like the word the Lord said.
Right.
And that's a paraphrase. And literally the picture that's painted is the door of the head of the house.
Yeah.
And it's like literally it means literally your ears.
Right.
The Lord speaking into it. You have to look that up. It's really cool, because I didn't have that prepared for me. But the one I was thinking of was early Christian writings.
Yeah.
And then if you go to early Christian writings, it's earlychristianwritings.com. If you go to that one, there's a freaking list. I mean, look at that list, dude. It's just a list of books that you can look at. We've read Barnabas, we've read the apocryphal book of Moses,
Yeah.
we've read all sorts, and then there's a link on that one to go to.
Well, look at all the Old Testament books that talk about, the book of the War of the Lords. You look
Yeah.
at the book of Jasper. Why is there not a book of Jasper?
Right.
Even though it's in, was it first?
Because the Council of Nicaea,
Right.
the authorities got together and they said, we don't want to do this. I mean, it's paramount to a Nazi book burning. They go, well, these ones aren't good. And I'm like, listen, Paul wrote in our canonical version
Right.
that everything written in the past was written to teach us. So it doesn't have to have all accuracy. It can still teach you something. I can read Shakespeare and it teach me something. I can read a historical book and it teach me something. Okay? So listen, this may not, I've read Barnabas, the Epistle of Barnabas. Okay?
Yep.
Now Barnabas was a companion of Paul.
The book of Enoch.
The Book of Enoch, dude. Yeah, there's
Love the book of Enoch.
And Jude quotes from the Book of Enoch.
Oh, absolutely.
As well as the apocryphal book of Moses. There's a whole bunch of stuff. So
It's funny when I look at a lot of the contextual stuff, and I have to laugh because there's so many books that people refuse to look at. And when you look at the pronunciation of the words canonized and cannibalized,
right?
are very close in pronunciation.
And they literally went through and they took out the words that were not...
giving, in essence, the church
they took
full
out
authority.
the books. They took out the books that were not... that didn't fit what the agenda that they wanted to push.
Giving the church the full authority.
Absolutely.
Because when you look at the Church of England, you look at good God, Constantine.
Yeah.
Don't take my word for it. Go look this up.
Go look it up.
Constantine, the first Roman emperor, and the
Christian.
Pope. Christian.
First Christian emperor.
Right. It was.
And he wasn't a great dude.
No,
He had an epiphany of a cross in the sky and,
Right.
and decided to become a Christian.
Yeah.
And before that, they were just as pagan as the day is long.
And was adapting all of these pagan things. And that's the thing, is if you're going to stick to a belief system, stick to just that belief system. Don't try
Right.
to incorporate crap and sugarcoat it and say, oh, this is really Christianity. Or, oh, this is really paganism.
Right.
Don't do that.
It's amazing.
Educate yourself on what it is about.
I know of people, dude, that literally they won't say the days of the week,
Right.
because they're named after pagan gods.
Mm-hmm.
They won't say the months of the year because
Right.
they're named after pagan gods. And it's like, or not pagan gods, against most of our months of the year
Right.
are Greco-Roman. They're named after Roman emperors.
Oh, yeah.
Augustus was August. Julius Caesar is July.
Great month.
October was from Octavius.
Right. Well, look at Wednesday was named after the Norse god.
Yeah, well, Thursday,
Right.
I commonly say it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You know, I'll go, we getting together on Thursday?
Yeah.
Because that's what it came from, was Thor. You know, these were mythology. So these people were literally, they're like,
Speaking of that,
What?
have you ever seen the series? I read the book. I recommend read the book, then go watch the series called American Gods by Neil Gaiman.
it's a little racy, but yes.
It is an incredible
It's
read.
just a disclaimer.
Right. It's incredible read, but read the book first, please. I encourage you to read the book and then go watch the series. It's so
incredible.
cool how they brought
And I have read the book. I haven't watched the series yet because I knew how
intense the book was.
intense the book was. Now, as far as Fight Club, that was another one.
Oh yeah,
That
absolutely.
was
There's so much
crazy.
truth in that.
What was his
movie.
name? The author, Fight Club, the original author.
Oh, you.
It's on the tip of my brain, dude.
All I can think of is Hunter S. Thompson, but that's so not.
No,
it.
that's not it, dude.
I can see him doing something like that though.
Yeah, but the original, the Fight Club. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? And we got phones right in front of us, but I'm not going to take the time. You guys can look that up. Anyways,
it up.
but that's the thing is we should never get rid of books because they contain material that I've had my own church for years, right?
Yeah.
You've been to services that I taught, okay, for
Several
years,
times.
okay, and I used to say to people, I'm like, and I even taught from the Epistle of Barnabas and actually the Shepherd of Hermas, which is
Right.
a really cool one. Have you read that one, the Shepherd of Hermas? It's
think I
awesome
have.
because there's literally like this Jesus comes in the tailing of it. He comes to Hermas and he presents himself as a young lady, and then as an old lady, and then as middle-aged lady, and it's all a matter of presenting this picture that Hermas, the shepherd, can accept at that moment. And so he literally goes back and forth, and he's talking with him. And so it's this picture of Jesus says, I'm going to come to you in a way that you can handle when you need to handle it, and you're going to have to deal with it from that point. And it's a really cool book, and I've taught from it because it's not as, you know, and people go, well, you taught from it as an authoritative book. Listen, man, the interesting thing about Jesus is he came on the scene and they marveled at him. One of the things they marveled was he actually had authority, unlike the teacher of the law. The teacher of the law came to it and they were like, look, you have to obey the scriptures. And they held up the parchment and demanded that people pay attention to the parchment. And here's Jesus showing up and he's like, my words carry authority. And that's part of the problem with this appeal to authority, this argument to authority, is that people don't in general value their own words. They don't see their own words carrying weight. And so what they do is, when in an appeal to authority, is they want to say, well, you know, so-and-so in the government or so-and-so in the church or somebody, you know, Dr. so-and-so or this other person said this and they've got a PhD and they've got a degree. Therefore, this must be true. And I go, wait a minute. Where's your authority at?
Right.
What have you studied? What have you gotten into? You know, and I try to be well versed. We've talked about that before. I try
Several
to be
times.
try to be very well versed, but I'm not going to present myself as somebody who is an expert on something. But at the same time, you know, if we go to the construction field, you want to build something, I'm going to ask questions from my suppliers.
Of course.
I'm going to go, all right, what do you say your product application? And I've taught suppliers. Suppliers teach me. They say, this is how you're going to do this. This is how you're going to do this. And I get in the field and I start doing it. And I go, hey, I was thinking I'm going to do it like this. And they go, oh, yeah, I didn't even think of that. That's great. And I go, cool.
Well, and even moreover, you're also humble enough a person and educated enough to go, I don't know that, but I'm going to go research that and I'll get back to
Absolutely.
you so we can revisit this.
Absolutely. And that's the point of it, too. So when you're dealing with the appeal to authority, it's like I'm teaching from the Shepherd of Hermas, and somebody will go, is that an actual authoritative book? You know, and I go, wait a minute.
Well, hold on.
I'm going to teach truth. Go back and study the Gospels. I challenge everybody. Go back and read. If you're a believer and you're tuning into this,
But well, there's. I mean,
Go back and read the Gospels.
3/4 of the New Testament was direct quotes from the Old Testament.
Okay. Is it?
Look it up.
Look it up.
As far as I know, I mean, that's some of the research that I've done. And if I'm wrong, I fully admit that I'm wrong, but go look it up.
My point is, you go back and read through the Gospels.
Right.
Okay? Jesus used Scripture to rebuke the Pharisees.
Yeah, he's the only one that he was a dick to.
Okay.
Was the religious folk.
Right. When he's talking to the people
Yeah.
or talking to his disciples, he goes, let me tell you, look at a tree.
Right.
See how it grows? See how it does this? Think about a seed. Think about a seed and plant a seed in the ground. It grows up and it provides shade for the birds of the air and blah, blah. He kept using all the things that were around him that were familiar to them
Right.
as teachings, as teaching tools, right?
And
Yet we
that's
get
what-
into church and they go, oh, you know, they act like we just got to stick with the scriptures. Why? Because you don't carry an authority anymore. You don't operate in any level of authority in your life and in your circle of influence, and therefore you've got to go back to this book of authority,
Right.
and then hammer people on it according to your interpretation of what's
Taking
coming forth.
stuff out
So
of
you're doing
context.
this appeal to authority. Well, my pastor says, okay, but did you read that for yourself? Have you studied it out? You know?
It's still great. I love the quote. Have you ever seen the movie Thank You for Smoking?
I've seen the title. I haven't watched it.
It is
that,
hilarious because they
It's not Thomas Jane. Who is it? It's the
it's the Aaron
Eckhart.
Yeah, Aaron Eckhart. So he goes to this television show, or no, I think it was like take your parent to school today or something like that.
Right.
And he's like, well, you know, I work for the tobacco, firearms, and alcohol or whatever it is.
Right.
And he's like, well, my mom said smoking kills you. And he's like, okay, are you a doctor? Are you, do you have a PhD? Can you back that up? Can you validate? Have you done the research? And then he spins it, and it's funny because it's a legitimate question. And he goes, well, I can't take your mom's input on that because she's not an authority on the subject. However, if you're an American, hey, God bless America.
Yeah.
And it was great how he flipped it because it's like, oh, dude, that guy was on point with that whole perspective.
With that idea.
Right, because, okay, so your mom says smoking's bad for you.
Right.
All right. Is she a doctor? Is she a respiratory therapist? Because those people are the ones that look at lungs and watch them do what they're supposed to be doing.
Which, let's discuss that for a second.
Right.
Okay. The reason that an appeal to authority should have validity is because there's an assumption that the person
Right.
that is the authority has done the due diligence and the study and the process necessary to become an expert in that field.
Right.
And here's the problem.
Right.
Is that when somebody moves beyond or doesn't complete all of the work necessary to be the authority, they're given the title and authority.
Right.
And then they have an agenda. And when you've got the agenda,
Right.
and you don't have all the information or you've suppressed the information,
Right.
now there's a problem.
I've ran into a lot of that with life coaching because life coaching is very, very specific. We're not counselors. We're not therapists. We're not psychiatrists. We are life coaches. And anybody...
But you are a licensed life coach.
well, I'm certified.
Certified life coach.
There's a
That's
difference.
the term. Yeah, you're a certified life coach.
I'm a certified life
so
coach.
you've done...
I've got a dual master certification. So having the ability to go through, I think it was something like 1,200 hours or something like that, watching videos, and also they have the downloadable resources you can go through and do this mental and emotional inventory of, okay, you're going to be dealing with real people, real problems, real
Right.
issues.
Right.
And the biggest obstacle is themselves.
Right.
So you have to figure out, one, how to not make it personal, but two, help these real people navigate past the biggest blockage, which is themselves.
Absolutely.
Which is going to bring up a lot of shit internally with you of going, oh, fuck, I deal with that all day. What if they see a weakness in that? And I'm supposed to be helping these people? I can't goal set if my own stuff's in the way.
So you got to work on yourself first.
Right.
Physician, heal yourself. That's literally a quote. Jesus, he literally quoted somebody else, quoted a natural
Right.
proverb.
Right.
It wasn't even a scripture.
Right.
It was a natural proverb. Look that up. But he says, physician, heal yourself.
Right.
You can't help somebody else if you're dealing with your stuff.
Right.
You got to deal with your stuff, and then you can help people. Continue.
But that's the thing, though, is I
I'm
started.
gonna get some ice.
I started back in June, I think it was, because myself, Becky, and Heather, who are co-hosts on the Survivor Girl podcast, I'm like, well, let's do this, because I've always wanted to educate myself on the life coaching industry, because it's been an industry for a minute. You think of like Tony Robbins, some of these other
Motivational speaker, but
Right.
yes, but in the same vein.
right in the same vein where people
You get into the personal stuff. That's when it's a life coach versus
Right.
the
and
group
in my
effort.
opinion, everyone should have a life coach, because some of the biggest obstacles is that inner monologue that you have
Right.
of, well, you can't do that.
Well, and we come at it from you can't do that. Let's come at it from just to define that, and then you can
Right.
then continue.
Yeah.
Everybody having a life coach meaning you may be the best runner, the best hockey player, the best baseball player, whatever. You still need somebody with an outside observation. They may not be. It's funny when I watch, and there's a 300-pound batting coach.
Yeah.
Watching this lean batting machine,
Right.
this guy who's knocking out of the park on a regular basis.
Right.
And the guy who's coaching him obviously doesn't have the discipline to push away from the buffet. And you go,
How does that work?
how's that work? But it's not about that. It's about him knowing techniques. I can't remember what they're recently. I'm not
It's
a big
about
baseball.
spotting those things that
Yes.
nobody else sees, because
And bring it to your attention in a humble
Right.
and honorable way so that you can make changes in helping you go through the process.
just like you said, the guy that is, knocking it out of the park, but the one thing that he, the one pitch that he missed was that coach was going, you turned your heel left instead of right when you swung.
Right.
Something as simple as that.
Exactly.
That you don't even realize that you're doing a lot of the times.
Yep.
Of turning your heel left instead of turning it right,
Yep.
because you're swiveling. You're
Yep.
swiveling on the pitch.
Well, look at I
Or
think
the
of
hit.
aside from his his personal issues, which did have a psychological effect. Think of Tiger Woods, but he had to sit down with guys and
Right.
work through it. And I think of not just him, but to make his comeback that he's done. Okay?
Absolutely.
But I think of other guys. There's a thing in golf where you get the yips.
Yep.
Which is later in life where you go to make your putt and all of a sudden your hands twitch.
Yeah.
And you hit the ball when you weren't mentally ready to hit the ball, and all of a sudden
course.
you're hitting the ball, and you're like, "What is that?" That's called the yips. It's a look that up. It's a common thing in golf. And so guys have to, when they have the yips,
Yeah.
they have to go back and retrain themselves.
Of course.
To putt or to swing a different way. They have to remap their brain through
Yep.
repetition in order to get to a place where they can function again.
And we've done that as musicians.
Absolutely.
Of having to do or retrain ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because, I've been a musician for, good God, the better part of 30 plus years. And there's certain things, like when I hit, 30, 35.
Yeah.
These things don't work the way that they used to.
Right.
Not because I'm not constantly keeping my stuff conditioned
Yeah.
and worked out, but eventually, as you
get older.
get older and
Yeah.
you're constantly doing this stuff,
Yeah.
you got to start, doing that cross training, if you will,
Yeah.
and getting different muscles to do, because you're still going to have the muscle memory,
Right.
but instead of, oh, well, that's a really bad habit.
Yeah.
So what did I do? I went to another teacher and said, what are you noticing about me?
Yeah. What are you seeing?
Give me, there's got to be a bad habit in there somewhere. And of course there is.
Right.
Because when you go to another professional
Right.
and go,
Yep.
gauge me, help
Yep.
me become a better,
Yeah.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
And,
What are you seeing?
right. And
Yeah.
anybody that is a professional that has done the due diligence immediately picks that out and goes, oh, you're holding your pinky out, or you're weighing your pinky down on the guitar bridge, or whatever it is.
Right.
That's not helping you get the full
Right.
mobility and motion.
Right.
And then you're wondering, like, oh man, why does my forearm hurt?
Right.
Well, when you're bending your pinky like this,
Yeah, you're pulling that tendon.
right, you're pulling that tendon, and it's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed
Right.
to.
Right.
But that's my point. You go to another professional that has done the due diligence and
Absolutely.
went, I dealt with that. Somebody
Yeah.
else pointed out to me. I didn't even realize I was doing it.
Until I
didn't
saw
even-
somebody else's perspective.
Right. Until I didn't take, oh, well, just got to put more hours in.
Right.
Do that sweat equity. That's great.
Absolutely.
But if you don't have an effective practicing session, you can play for 72 hours straight. You're not going to be any better than when you were when you first started.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
taking the...
And isn't it interesting sometimes when we take a step back,
Right.
and don't practice for a little while?
Oh, yeah.
And we come back to it after a little bit, and you go, and then you come up with something else, and then you're like, wow.
Yeah.
So there's times where you need to kind of fast whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
and take a break from it. And there's other times where you need to stay consistent and just observe.
Absolutely.
With hockey, with me, I have a lot of people that come up, of course, and as a goalie, and they're like, oh man, you should have done this, you should have done that, and I'm like, stop talking. Just stop. I'm not even listening to you.
Going back to the life coaching thing,
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious because the first couple of, yeah,
You know the beer?
yeah, please. Doing the first couple of classes was really hard because I had to sit there and go through the mental and emotional inventories.
Right.
And they did a lot of visualization stuff, which whatever, cool. Hey, that's great. I appreciate that. I understand what you're getting at. But it's I refer to it as, and I've heard other people since I've taken these classes, I've heard other people refer to it as psychological common sense. And a lot of us don't have that. We do and don't even realize that we have it.
Right.
So studying this stuff, and I'm like, why am I struggling with this so hard? And, one of our mutual friends, Heather, is like, well, maybe you're looking at it in the wrong perspective.
Right.
So I went back and I listened to some of the classes that I'd already done, and I slightly changed my perspective.
Okay.
And holy cow, I'm like, well, duh.
Right.
When you're doing like you remember the old profile drawings we did in school?
Yeah, absolutely.
How you shined a light on, and that's what you saw.
Yeah.
Somebody's nose was all kind of weird, like a turkey neck thing going on with the fat kid or whatever. I was that kid.
Oh.
So I thought it was hilarious when we were doing the profile drawings. I'm like, that's not what my head looks like at all.
When you get the caricatures done at Cedar Point or something like that, or the fair or something like that, and you're like, wow. I started like, people wonder why I shaved my head for years and I've got a full head of hair.
You've got an afro.
Because I had this, I literally, there's a caricature, I think my mom still has it.
Okay.
But like this, I had my hair. Dude, I used to style my hair. People wouldn't believe that, but I used to style my hair. When you look at my high school photos and stuff like that, I got some stylish. Yeah, you got your hairs, don't you? You gonna put that right up on the camera?
Yeah, put that right up on the camera.
All right, you do that one, and I'm gonna. You know what? I'll go get my high school because mine's right over there. Put yours right up there. Show it to him. Switch over there.
Can you see? Oh, there it is.
Oh my dear God.
That's literally you, bro.
That's so me.
That is you.
You look like fucking Jack Black.
Exactly. The funny part about that is in that picture, I actually had hair down to my ass, and I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious because now I'm bald. Very, very similar. Oh, what you got? You got to see that.
Oh, there's too much glare. Oh, there it is. I got it now.
Is that Taylor?
Bloody glorious.
Me.
That's glorious, man.
Oh, good God.
Check that hair
That
out.
is so bad.
Just straight glorious.
Hey, look, it's Vanilla Ice.
That is 1990s.
Oh, God.
1991 is when I graduated.
that was Vanilla Ice all the
was
way.
some sweet. I used to use the Aquanet and the Moose and all that stuff. And
Dude, that was
style-
me when I played.
Dude, style hair, but I had a spike, dude. You could it was like a. You could rest things on top of my hair because it stuck up so brittle and
Oh,
hard.
no, mine was just like sheer 80s poof.
And then I let it grow, and it was when Vince was born, I could pull my hair back into a ponytail.
Yeah.
And you saw his Brillo pad hair.
Oh, yeah.
Mine wasn't as bad, but I still had this natural curl. In fact, I had a buddy of mine that was like in high school. He's like, he'd come up and he goes, dude. Did you get perm? I'm like, no, I'm not getting a perm. What are you talking about? And he's like, dude, you got a natural curl. My hair's all straight. And I'm like, I'll trade you. And I mean, I would trade you in a heartbeat. Because my hair was like just like curl up and do all sorts of crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And Vince, he gets this Brillo pad, and I'm like, dude. We got that Bob Ross picture of him. Remember that?
Yeah.
One of his birthdays? I took this picture of Bob Ross and Vince sitting at the table and put him up, and I go,
Yeah. I think Bob Ross was your dad, buddy.
Anyway, so again, we're dealing with this appeal to authority and understanding that authority has a place, absolutely, but it's a place of education and true authorities. I love looking at the way that colleges used to be, and I don't mean colleges, university or college, but actual higher learning the way it used to be.
Yeah.
And it was a collaborative effort. And so you had the professors bouncing stuff off of kids. And
You had to do the due diligence.
You had to study because they're like, teach me something new. Show me something,
Right.
It's like when the Lord said that to me years ago, when the Lord said to me, he said, you teach me. Mm-hmm. I was blown away. I had to meditate on it for a while. I'm like, wait a minute. What do you mean I teach you? And he goes, suspend your thoughts of eternity and the fact that I already know everything.
Right.
And I went, okay, that I have to do that because otherwise. And he goes, listen. And he took me to my kids.
Yeah.
I'm literally watching my kids get up and do something.
Yeah.
And I go, wow. And I remember, one that pops to my mind is Vince.
Yeah.
Remember Vince? We're watching Matrix.
Yeah.
Something like that, right? And he walks into the room, his precocious little self, and he walks in. He must have been Bubby's age, maybe 4 or 5, something like that.
Yeah.
And just enough to where he could read, 5 or 6. Maybe it was because we were amazed that he read it too.
Of course.
And he walks in, and the logo comes up on the movie.
Yeah.
And he looks at the movie, and he's standing he walks into the middle of the room in front of the big screen TV, and he stands there and he looks at it, and he turns around and looks at all of us, and he goes, Warner Bros.
I remember that.
Warner Bros. And then he turns around and he walks out of the room. And we're just rolling, dude. We're like, all right, we got to rewind the movie because this kid came in here and blew us away.
Right.
And so that's just one little thing where he came in and did something that we'd never seen before, we never expected before. And that's when the Lord was saying, you teach me. You do things that as your Father in heaven, your Creator, of course, he's in eternity. He's like, forget that part.
Right.
When I created you to be unique and have a unique expression. And then you just made your expression. And I go, oh, check that out.
Perfect example. I had a professor in college. The second time I went to college, excuse me.
Get it out here, boy.
And his name was Mr. Satchel. I love Mr. Satchel because he adopted some of us wayward students, I guess.
You?
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay.
His first day of class, he had to go through all of the syllabus and crap.
Dude, what the hell was that?
You had a corruption in your audio file, and it was glitching the whole program out.
The audio file was what caused the problem?
It goes, and we lose about 2 minutes of footage in there. So it could have been the video file, too.
So can we recover it? I mean, what's the deal? Are we screwed? What's the...
Might have to say sorry to your viewers.
Sorry, viewers. Apparently you lose about 5 to 10 minutes of footage from logical fallacies, but I guess you'll get over it.
I think that is a logical fallacy because we only use or lose about 2 minutes in there, so
My bad.
not sure which one that is, but they're all on the wall, so we can look at it later if you
Okay,
want.
so we're good. We got this all figured out.
Yep, we're good.
This is My Brain. I hope you're enjoying this episode. Every once in a while we get technical difficulties. Superfragilocasualistic Ben over here is going to fix it all up and make sure it works right. Is that what we're doing, Benny?
That's what we're trying to do, yes.
Okay. Peace out, everybody. Enjoy the show. Oh, we're keeping that. That's going in there. That is what you call a Hot Pocket spaz. Still going.
And it was great when I was living with you. They both come to you, and I don't remember what it was specifically about, but Taylor, in all of his epicness,
Oh,
was
dude.
just like, Dad, this is the thing. We need to do this. And Al was like, yeah, Dad, can we do this? And you're like, no. Al turned and walked away. Taylor's like, but Dad, you don't understand. And you're like, son,
I do understand. Come here.
come here. And Al comes down. I'm like, you good, man? He's like, well, I'm kind of boned, but Taylor's got it worse than I did because Dad said no, and he's still talking. But that's Taylor. He's not afraid
Yeah.
to confront and question authority.
And Al does that too in his own ways, but it wasn't his original idea. It was Vince's idea. And so
Right.
he's like, all right, I'm going to back you because it sounded cool, but he didn't have as much invested in it. So
Right.
he was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm out. You said no, I'm out. And that's the way, that's the way I operate in my company.
Right.
That's the way that I do things with my construction company. I'm like, look, I've got a lot of experience doing this stuff.
Right.
But I'm open to fresh ideas and new ways of doing things. And if you've got a better idea, and I tell my guys, I'm like,
Right.
look, if you got a better way of doing this, I'm willing to entertain your idea.
Right.
Okay. But I want you to realize I'm not shooting from the hip here. In fact, I used to tell guys years ago, and I tell my guys now, I'm like, a couple of my guys would be like, well, have you thought about this? And I go, yeah. They go, why don't you do it like this? And I go, because I've thought about it for the last week on how we need to build this 32,000 square foot gym. And I know it. You looked at it for 10 seconds and think you've got an idea. And I go, no, that's not the way we're going to do it. And I go, because you didn't think about the second floor. You didn't think about this. 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 And you go, oh, yeah, you're right. And I go, dude, so I'm open to your ideas.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to come with a little bit of
Right.
tempering and education before you just kind of act like your idea is going to be, well, why are you doing this? And I go, because I've been studying the print for the last 4 months. Do you know what the length of the front wall is?
Right.
No. Okay. You don't know what the length of the front wall is. You don't know what the beams are going to be in that front wall. You don't know what the PSI for the concrete is going to be in the front wall. You don't know any. So stop telling me how I need to put the foam on there. Just do what I told you. So, I mean, there's levels
Right.
of authority, but authority is a give and take. When James, there's certain areas that James is my superintendent, and you guys will go to meet James because he's going to be on here.
James is awesome.
He may even join us for the live show tomorrow. We'll see.
Oh, that'd be great.
Whenever you're watching this, you'll have already probably seen it. Anyways, but James, when the things that he's done, because he's done a ton of metal roofs.
Yeah.
Right. I've done shingled roofs. When I first got into
You and me
construction,
both, brother.
Right. I got into regular roofing, so I know how to shingle the hell out of a roof. Right.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to do it ever again, but
No.
I know how to do it, and I've got the tools. But so if it comes around, but anyways, but
my
James
knees
is.
just hurt you talking about that.
Remember how many times I used to go? I used to have
Yeah.
I used to pay a monthly payment to the chiropractor, and I could go
Yep.
unlimited times.
Yeah.
And it was a chiropractor with the massage and everything like that, because they would adjust you and then they would massage you.
Yeah.
I asked him one time, because he's an authority figure, right?
Right.
And I said, dude, how do you know how to hit those spots? And he goes, practice and training, he said, ultimately.
Right.
He said, but if I put a grain of salt on the table, it's a glass table, and you run your hand over it, he said, do you think you'll find the piece of sand? And I went, yeah, if I take it, he goes, that's kind of the way I look at it is I'm going to find that spot in your spine that's out of
Right.
adjustment. I'm going to adjust it, and then the gals are going to come in and do the massage, right, in that area. He said, I literally walk out of the room where I've adjusted you. They walk in, and I tell them where I made the adjustment, and they massage the muscles so that the muscles that have been trained to be out of place for the last month don't pull you back out of place immediately.
Right.
You want to either, they never really did a deep tissue, but they did enough of a massage to where your muscles relaxed and then adopted the new position.
Right.
Because they'll pull you right back out. But the whole point was he was that's my problem. I think that's a big thing to bring up.
How we doing on time, Nate?
Where we at?
Where we at?
111.
Oh, we've got
Okay.
plenty of time. So my big thing about the appeal to authority is anytime you question authority,
Yeah.
if they can't give you an answer, if they tell you, like I was just saying earlier,
Yeah.
because I said so, before you talked about Al and Vince,
Right.
you've you've started to lose me right there. You may not have completely lost me, but you started to lose me because if you haven't thought this through in such a way that you can give me an answer, and especially that's just one thing. If I say, if I question you,
Right.
now if I bring some alternate information into the equation,
Right.
and I ask you, and you go, no, there's no way. There's no possible way. There's nothing. No. I go, you lost me. And that's the problem is if you're going to be an authority figure, and I've been an authority figure in my company, my business, my company. I've been an authority figure in the church that I started.
Right.
I've been an authority figure in other organizations. Remember the time, were you around when I was helping with when I was part of the church, Chapel Hill in Vassar?
I think I caught the tail end of
So a couple little quick stories. So I go to, pastor needs a new roof, right?
Right.
And he says, of course, he comes to me. I think at the time I was serving as youth pastor.
Yeah.
Ryan and everybody.
Yeah.
Tisha and everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm serving as youth pastor, and he says, hey, we're putting a new roof on my house. If you can come over and give a hand, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing construction full time at that point.
Yeah.
Right. So I get over there Saturday morning, and they got the roof all tore off. They got it redone. The front's shingled. So all they've got is the backside with the chimney and everything like that.
Yeah.
Right? I go, okay. And I look around, and I'm like, okay, you got a good gun. I didn't know what to expect. So I showed up there. So I get over there, and they're like, they went, well, you're the guy that does this every day. What do you think? And I go, okay. I said, all right, I need shingles laid this way. It was dimensional shingles. It wasn't three tabs. So I'm just going to run these things up, right?
Yeah.
So I go, okay, lay my shingles like this. I said, keep them coming. I said, make sure I got nails to the ridge every time I get up to the top because I'm going to be out of nails.
Yep.
I said, give me the gun. And I just started laying shingles. And they're like freaking out.
Yeah.
Because I'm not looking at the piece of paper on the back of the shingle package and measuring exactly because it's literally on the piece of paper. It tells you for the novice, it tells you where you need to cut. And I come over and I'm like, they're like, well, how come you're not cutting? I go, look, this is a dimensional shingle. It's 2 layers of shingling in order to make that dimensional feel.
Right.
I'm not cutting through the double layers when I go to the edge of the roof. I'm going to cut through the single layer and start there. And then I'm going to save that piece. We're going to take it to the other end of the roof. So I just start flying up this roof, right?
Yeah.
So the whole front side, they spent the first day like shingling. And I showed up there like 9:30, 10 o'clock on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And I shingled the whole back side by like noon. And that's because I kept blowing the breaker on the air compressor. They had an air compressor plugged into the garage, the 220 air compressor, and I kept blowing it. And I'm like, I'm going, brrr,
Oh, yeah.
brrr, brrr, like this. And they're like, we've never, they're just astounded at going fast. And I turned around and looked at all of them. I goes, I was the slowest guy on my crew.
Right.
I'm like, but so I walked onto a place, and because they knew me,
Yeah.
I was an immediate authority figure, but I was humble enough to say I was the slowest guy on my crew. And if you guys think that's amazing, you should see some of the guys that I worked with.
Oh, yeah.
I used to go and do the little bay roofs and the little the little returns, the Queen Anne's returns and stuff like that. The little, when the overhang comes down, they got the little returns.
Yeah.
I used to go through and do all those little intricate parts.
Yeah.
Because I was meticulous enough, and I didn't need to be up on the top just destroying my back doing the stuff.
Yeah.
The other story, Pastor says, he knew me. He says, hey, they're building a new church up in Reese,
Yeah.
that big one in Reese, the Assembly of God in Reese.
Yeah.
When you hit that part of town, come down.
Yep.
Okay. So there, he's like, if you can go up there, on a Saturday
Yeah.
and give him a hand, that would be great. So he's asking me a favor. I'm like, sure. So I show up to this church on this Saturday, right? It's all volunteers, good people, great, good people. And I show up and I'm there and I go, okay, what's the plan? What are we doing? So they had all the walls built,
Yeah.
right? All the trusses are set. They're braced, right?
Yeah.
And so they're ready to sheet this roof. They're ready to throw the OSB up.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's do this thing. I'm like, okay, what's your plan, right? And the guy in charge was a church member, of course, but he was also one of the salesmen at the lumberyard in Vassar.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And he's like, well, we wanted to get this sheeted and everything like that. And he's like, so within 20 minutes of me being on site, I'm in charge. Within 20 minutes. He's like, well, whatever you think, whatever you want to do. And he just kind of looks at everybody else and goes, he goes, whatever Brother Jeremy wants to do, let's do that. And I'm like, okay. I said, and they had a half-assed machine.
Yeah.
With forks on it.
Yep.
And I said, bring that over here with a bunk of plywood, lift it up to the, I don't think it was a full bunk of plywood, but it was probably half a bunk. I'm like, lift it up to the edge. They already had the 2x6 on the edge of the board. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, give me a sheet. And I start slinging sheets.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I start grabbing 4x8 sheets of OSB and I'm slinging them up on the roof. And I'm going up, I get up 3 rows in like an hour. I'm up 3 rows. And this church is, 100 feet long or something like that?
Something like that.
And I'm burning through this. And I get up 3 rows and I'm pulling trusses and I can't get them to line up on layout.
Yeah.
Because they're going to go straight. And I go, did you guys... I said, you got all your regular bracing on the top to keep it from falling over until it gets sheeted. I said, but did you guys put the lacing in the inside? They're like, yeah. I goes, no. You need to go through and loosen that all up because it's not level. Yeah. It's not right.
Right.
It's not square.
Yeah.
You use the plywood to do your final squaring of the whole project. And they're like, oh, we didn't even know. And I'm like, okay, well, we need to go up there and loosen that up because this is fighting me. And this should just walk up the wall. I've built a lot of stuff.
Right.
And they were like, wow. So my whole point is that I've walked onto jobs or walked onto situations, and within just a few minutes, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
I'm the authority figure. But I'm the authority figure in that area of my life because I've done it. And I'm also humble enough to say, I need your help. What did you guys do before I showed up? What's this? What's this? What's this? So when we're talking about the appeal to authority, we're not talking about that same scenario.
Right.
We're talking about the scenario when somebody hasn't done their due diligence, hasn't educated themselves, hasn't taken the time to figure out what is really going on. When I talk about JFK, I've watched hundreds of documentaries. I've sat up
I've read the redacted documents.
Exactly. I've sat up in insomnia and watched
so many times.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, oh, that's why, because I never understood, or I didn't understand for the longest time, why is Lee Harvey Oswald being charged with killing Phil Tippett? What's the point, right? And then you watch the one documentary, and you find out that Phil Tippett was called Little JFK.
Yes.
He was called Little Kennedy.
Yep.
Because he was a spitting image of Kennedy.
Right.
Everybody in his department called him Little Kennedy, or whatever the nickname was, but it's Little JFK or Little Kennedy, right? And then you find out, wait a minute, he was killed, the body was swapped.
Yep.
And that's the actual body that showed up in Washington.
Yep.
Because even the family quoted, he doesn't look exactly the same. There's something about him that's a little off.
Right.
And there was a mobster that was on the plane with LBJ in the body in the back with the 2 coffins that's doing all the work. And you go, how does this stupid cop even play into this thing until you find out that he was a doppelganger for the president, that they could do the exact shots that they needed to prove that it was just a lone gunman, because Kennedy's got 5 bullet holes in him from 3 bullets. No, it doesn't work. He's got he's got all this, and they're like, so anyways, you sit up and you study that stuff, right, and so I wouldn't sit on here and say I'm going to go through this conspiracy and go word for word, because I don't have those notes. That wasn't the point. The point was there's an argument or an appeal to authority because some government official came out and said this is the way it is. Yet in 1979, they had the Commission on Assassinations, right? Where they reinvestigated everything that the Warren Commission came out with, and they said that there was a probable cause or probable conclusion that there was multiple players involved, right? But they didn't go any further with that, and they've got so many things redacted. So Trump has the opportunities. There was a bunch of stuff, new stuff released.
I did not see that yet.
You just see it when he became president. It came up and they
released
it.
Yeah. I thought you were talking recently.
No. Okay. When he first got into office, they released a whole bunch of stuff, and it's like, but they still redacted some of it because they're trying to cover each other's asses because we took out let's for a minute, let's talk about the conspiracy of this, the appeal to authority, right? Kennedy was going to get rid of the IRS. He was having our own government issued currency drafted. Okay. Well, not the IRS. I misspoke. The Federal Reserve. Which is a private bank. They were going to get rid of the Federal Reserve, which would have taken away the teeth of the IRS, because the reason the IRS does the stuff it is because it's a government agency that operates on behalf of the Federal Reserve. Yeah, the Federal Reserve Act was signed in 1913, and it was done under cloak of darkness during December 24th or something like that. It was when everybody was out of session. They had like 3 congressmen or 3 senators that signed it. It's been a joke, dude. Look it up.
Thank you, J.P. Morgan.
Yeah.
Look it up. Don't. Here's the thing: is when you go through and look at history. If you ever watch the men who built America, okay, J.P. Morgan.
That was a pretty good History Channel.
Oh my God, it was
I like
incredible.
that one.
J.P.
It was
Morgan,
pretty
John D.
accurate.
Rockefeller, and Andrew Carnegie
Yeah.
all worked together. They were titans of industry.
Yeah.
And was working to put a president in office. Well,
Yeah.
that didn't happen.
Right.
However, they came damn close.
Yeah.
But look it up. Don't take my word for it. Please educate yourself. And that's, I think, what it ultimately comes down to is don't be afraid to ask the question.
Ask the question, educate yourself.
What is really going on here?
You know, that's part of the reason we fought the Civil War.
Right.
It's because the Southern gentlemen were educated,
Right.
And the Northern industrialists couldn't go toe to toe with them on the education, even though they were wrong on some of their stances.
Right.
And their founding fathers knew from the beginning that we would have to address slavery at some point.
Challenging authority. If you look at it, because both people. What was it? It was Abraham Lincoln, and then there was I want to say General Lee, but there was another. Was it Ulysses? I think.
Well, Grant was the general at the end
Right.
for the last couple years. Of the
But
Civil War.
there was the 2 opposing, I guess, presidents, you could say.
Oh, you're talking about Jefferson Davis.
The one, yeah, Jefferson Davis, and then
Davis
Abraham Lincoln.
And Abraham Lincoln, yeah.
Both of them had put on paper several times, we do not want to go into war over slavery.
Right.
Because that's not the core issue. Now go back and educate yourself and do the due diligence. Here's the thing. A lot of the reasons why the Civil War happened was because when plantation owners were dying off, because women did not have the right to vote at that point in time. They did not have the right to own property.
Right.
And I use this word respectfully because this is in context back then what it was called. The house nigga was the one that was gaining all of that property, all that possession.
Right.
Since the woman of the house was not able to vote, was not able to own property, guess what that house nigga came in possession of?
Right.
And there was
there
no
was-
next of kin.
Right.
There was no male next of kin
Right.
to where it went down. So when you have enough of them Southern belles who were educated in a lot of areas because that's what they did,
Right.
went, I'm not property or possession.
Yeah.
This ain't happening.
Right.
And enough of that stuff was going on. And don't take my word for it. Go look it up.
Yeah. Please do that. because
Educate
it's-
yourself. Do the due diligence on this stuff. There's so many different references
Absolutely.
that you can look this up. And
John Taylor Gatto is one of my favorites.
Oh, I love John Taylor. The Ultimate History Lesson.
Yes.
It
This
is
is like
6 hours.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's
Watch
so
the
gorgeous.
whole thing.
And he
It'll
talks
blow
about
your mind.
He talks about the Civil War. He talks about the and then in the 1870s and 1880s, the orphan trains.
Yes.
Where they would just, because parents had to work 2 jobs, that they would end up giving their kids up for adoption.
Yeah.
And then their kids would be adopted out to these farmers in the West.
Right.
The Midwest that had all these farms, and they just wanted kids that would be, basically not indentured servants, but they would basically they're workers. They're
Yeah.
I'm going to adopt a kid, so I got somebody to work the farm. Right. And these kids were causing all these problems because they weren't identifying with the parents that they were living with. And there was this huge spike in crime, and the sheriff's departments. Dude, watch that. It's phenomenal. And he does a beautiful breakdown on what was really going on in the Civil War, because the founding fathers didn't want they were the ones that wanted to eradicate slavery from the beginning.
Right.
But they knew if they put a provision in there to get rid of slavery that they wouldn't get all 13 colonies to sign on to it, because it was a heavy-duty industry. So they left provisions in there and allowed for secession. They allowed for other things.
Isn't
so
that the Emancipation Proclamation?
that's what Lincoln signed in.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was all, you look at it. Go do the due diligence. Find the documents that Jefferson Davis, Abraham Lincoln, both of these guys were, for the most part, for policies and politics.
They're taking down.
We're on the same page.
They're
of
taking
going,
down. They're taking down Lee's statues throughout the South.
Why?
And Lee is quoted. In fact, it's a crazy thing. Lincoln is quoted as saying, "I don't care about slavery.
Yeah.
I care about the Union. I care about the country." And you watch some of his actions. He did a lot of stuff that was
Very shady.
very shady and definitely unconstitutional.
Oh,
when he arrested
so many times.
he had senators and representatives arrested for criticizing the way that he did stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, had him arrested and put in jail. Dude, look that shit up.
Look it
it's
up.
crazy.
It's right there in the history.
And Lee, General Lee, who fought for the South, and you would say he's just all about slavery. He literally is on record. He's like, I'm fighting for the South. He was in Annapolis. He went through West Point. He's a graduate of West Point.
Very
He fought-
smart man.
Very smart man. Hugely educated.
Yes.
Grant was a drunk when they pulled him out of.
Right.
He was working at his brother's mercantile shop. They pulled him out. And he was a drunk, and they're like, we need to pull you back into the Army.
Right.
And he's like, well, give me another
All right,
shot of
whatever.
whiskey, I'll do
Yeah.
that. But Lee said, Lee's on record. Look this up. Look at the quote from Lee. He said, if I could free every slave right now and prevent this war, I would do it in a heartbeat. I would do
Yes.
it right now,
Yes.
immediately. So it's not cut and dry, man.
No.
And the amount of whites and blacks that fought in the North, and the amount of whites and blacks that fought in the South.
Right.
There were black people that fought in the South, and you would say, well, they were forced to. No, there were free men in the
They
South.
were
that fought.
given their freedom so they could fight on
So
top
it's
of...
not cut and dry. It's not
Have you
straight
ever
up, and it's
seen-
not just straight. And I love that about John Taylor Gatto, because he
Yes.
talks about it, and he says that they knew in the South that slavery was on its way out anyways. There were a whole bunch of other issues, because the biggest problem with slavery is that you have when a slave reaches a certain point and can't work as hard.
Right.
You still have to support them.
Of
You
course.
still have to take care of them.
Right.
You still have to house them and do it. Otherwise, you're just a heartless son of a bitch, and you're going to kill them, which most of them weren't going to do.
Right.
So they're literally and we always see the horrible examples on movies and stuff like that.
Right.
The vast majority, if I went and did the genealogy of most black people, they have a white last name, because it's no different. And I don't care if people are getting pissed off. Go study it, okay?
Please, go
I've
study
studied
it.
this stuff, okay? Because if somebody's been wronged, I want to know this. My ancestries are Polish and Czechoslovakian, okay?
Right.
And so when people start talking to me about the Holocaust and the amount of 6 million Jews that were murdered, and I go, well, my descendants. Now my family came
Right.
over here in the 1890s, or the 1890s, before the turn of the century. That's when my family's
Right.
patriarchs emigrated here to America through Ellis Island legally. Okay,
Right.
they came through, and they came to this country. I'm from Poland to Czechoslovakia, that whole Slavic area.
Right.
Okay. Next to the Jews, 6 million. That's accounted. That's the number they put out.
Of course.
Okay. Of the 11 million people killed in the Holocaust, specifically in the Holocaust, not just the whole war, is 20 million.
Auschwitz, Dachau, all of those places.
There's 20 million just Russians that were slaughtered just in battles alone.
Right.
But the 11 million people that were killed, 6 million were Jews, 5 million were attributed to be Poles and Czechs.
Wow.
Okay? So if I wanted to sit here, I could be a victim too. And I've had these debates with people, and I go, look, I was never personally there.
Right.
So I can look back and say, maybe I can trace back some ancestry there, but I
Right.
wasn't there. Other people can trace more direct descendants there, and that's great.
Was it Schindler's List?
Schindler's List. But my point is that when you're dealing with the idea of slavery, it wasn't just this cut and dry that the master was an asshole and we want to get away from him. A lot of people were given their freedom and chose to stay. In fact, there's accounts of
Gangs of New York.
yeah.
Huge in that.
So, but I was thinking back to the Old Testament.
Yeah.
The Old Testament. I wear earrings. Now I wear earrings just because I like them. You got some earrings. They look good. But in the Old Testament, you would do an indentured slavery
Right.
for a Jewish family,
Right.
And at the end of whatever your term was, 7 years, 14 years, whatever it was, if you were granted your freedom.
Yep.
But if you loved the people you were with so much and you wanted to stay, they would take a big nail called an awl, and they would put your ear up against the door of the house.
Right.
And they would drive the spike through there and pierce your ear, and that would be an everlasting sign that you belonged to the family from that point on.
Right,
and
because
so
you were a bond servant.
You were a bond servant. And so what I'm saying is that we get these pictorials. You know, we get Django Unchained, or what was it, 12 Years a Slave.
12 Years a Slave was an incredible movie.
Incredible movie. And those are accurate pictorials.
Yes.
But that is not the totality of it.
Right.
There were many.
And there were some creative liberties taken in those movies.
Yes.
However, you know, when you go
I'm not saying slavery was phenomenal. I'm
No.
saying there were horrible aspects of slavery, but there were other aspects where slave owners were extremely generous, and they were operating within a system. And so you can't take it and say that it was and you can't separate the fact that slavery had, where did they come from? They were captured by other tribes. I mean, they were warring tribes. It's just like when we talk about the Indians.
when you look at Roots,
Yeah.
you know, with LeVar
Beautiful.
Burton.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's an incredible movie, and it's toxic, it's dark, it's inhumane, and you look at this stuff and how horrible it was.
Yeah.
And then you go to stuff like 12 Years a Slave,
Right.
or you go to stuff like what's the other?
You've watched the behind the scenes on that, haven't you?
Oh, dude, so
Dude, Fassbender he broke down and he almost had a nervous breakdown
yeah.
after the rape scene
Oh yeah.
because he was like, it was so violent and so intense. He's like,
Right.
he and that's the thing about it is the vast majority of people, we talked about it in some previous episodes about the
so
the
funny.
armistice during the
It's so funny you bring that up. I was actually watching a video the other day, and then I had to stop watching it and go do some due diligence. In the militaries around the world,
Right.
You know, sharpshooters, marksmen, the whole 9 yards. Like
Yeah.
people that you tell them to shoot something, they're putting
putting it down. Yeah, they're putting it
a
down.
bullet to the same hole.
right,
You have a dead center shot.
right,
The humanitarian part of these people that are military trained, tacticians, you know, strategists, the whole 9 yards.
right,
The reason why they miss their target
yeah,
is because they're human.
and that's
When they're
what
shooting another human being.
that's what we're saying about the World War I.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Christmas.
We were
what
just
was-
talking about
Yeah,
that.
the Christmas. What do we call that? The Christmas. What is it called? The Christmas
I know what you're talking about.
ceasefire. Christmas
Yeah,
ceasefire.
Yeah.
Where everybody stopped on Christmas and started singing.
Opposing sides that
Opposing
were
sides
killing each other.
Stopped shooting at each other.
Right.
Started singing Christmas carols and gave gifts to each other and did all
Right.
this. And that's the thing about it. You know, when I look at slavery, or look at all this. I've studied a whole bunch of of this country because I've had some friends that are, in fact, my best friend in high school
Right.
was I think 8%,
Right.
or not 8%, 1/8 Indian.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? I mean, his mom had just gorgeous jet black hair. She was a beautiful lady, and he was. I mean, my buddy was just. I mean, he had this nice olive. He looked cool, and the point is that he said, he recognized his heritage and stuff like that.
Right.
But we also, I also studied that, and I'm like, it wasn't just cut and dry that the white man came in and wiped out the Indians. When
There was a lot of Indians that sold other tribes out because they wanted the land.
and they were also at war with each other.
Right. Well, how are you going to be what's the old adage?
Part of the reason the white people were able
the
to come
enemy
in.
of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah, part of the French and Indian Wars. You had the Indians that. Yeah, I mean, on the Gibbs side, they're related to Chief Joseph Brant, who knew Lincoln. And was part of they were connected because there were Indians that fought in that.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people, they don't take the whole context. Listen,
when you
a
look
lot
at-
of the vast majority of the slaves that were sold into slavery that came to the Americas, South America, Central America, North America,
Right.
were sold by competing tribes. It wasn't just, they didn't just show up on the coast and capture a bunch of people. They showed
right.
up on the coast and they'd already been captured and they were brought on the boats. You can't take that part of the equation out of it.
What was the speech they were giving a couple of years ago? Reparations for.
Yeah, it's like
So
I love talking to Sister Crystal about that because she's.
And here's the thing: yes, there was multiple ethnicities that were severely wronged in certain areas.
absolutely.
However, when you come to the United States, the 13 colonies,
Yeah.
you know, when you talk about the original,
There were white slaves. There were Chinese slaves, Oriental.
right, but the ones that
Black
were,
slaves?
and I say this with reservation, but I also say this based off historical fact. When you're talking about a culture of people that are more or less completely pushed into extinction, and the ones that were left were given, you know, smallpox blankets or alcohol
dude.
or tobacco.
Yeah.
To let them go generation after generation. I mean, we look at the statistics of the original tribes of the Native Americans.
Right.
They died from consumption. They died from, you know,
Disease. That they
Diseases.
hadn't been exposed to.
generation after generation after
Yeah.
generation. The alcoholic aspects
That's
of
it's
it
breaks
so
my heart.
sad.
Dude. Breaks my heart. And I had a buddy of mine years ago that he used to go. He was hanging out with us, and he was 1/4 or something like that Indian.
Yeah.
And he would go back and he would talk about. He would take the things of the tribe, or things of the stories. What am I thinking of? The gods.
The spirits.
The spirits, the great spirits.
The great spirits,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he would take those dynamics and he would teach them about, because the majority of the tribes knew of Christ without knowing before the missionaries came and knew of Christ. Because, I mean,
Right.
you know, I grew up going to the UP up to the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't just walk up and see the Bishop of Baraga, you know,
Yeah.
and St. Ignace. I went up there and looked and read the plaques and looked at it and
course.
said, oh, this guy showed up here to bring Christ to the native populations.
Right.
You know, and Grandpa Gibbs,
Yeah.
if you look at him and then you look at his dad and you go back, it's heavy. Like I said, they're related to Chief Joseph Brand. You can see in Grandpa Gibbs
Yeah.
that nose, that Indian nose, you
Yeah.
know, broad nose. And so I don't know what it was removed. They weren't heavily.
Yeah.
And I'm adopted in the family. You know, I need to do a DNA test one of these days because
Yeah, I mean, you and me both.
yeah,
man.
because I know I'm Polish and Czechoslovakian on mom's side, but on my biological father's side, I know there's French and Indian.
Yeah.
And there may be on the Polish side, the Polish Czechoslovakian, there may be
Right.
some Jewish, and I just wanted like see what it comes back.
My
with,
uncle
but-
was huge into that whole genealogy thing, and they've actually done a lot of the tracing where it's the word of mouth.
Yeah.
I actually got to meet one of the ladies who was like 90-something years old.
Yeah.
That used to walk one of the guys that had originally helped build the cotton gin from
Nice.
George Washington Carver.
No, that was
Or not George
Eli
Washington.
Whitney.
Eli Whitney, yeah.
Yep.
But, you know, worked hand
Carver was phenomenal, dude.
Yeah, worked hand in hand with these people
guy
and
was
knew them
awesome.
personally. And he got into an accident and went blind. So here's this little tiny girl who's working with this 6'7" dude,
Right.
and guiding him down a hill every morning so he could go do his rounds with, you know, the farm hands and what have you.
Right.
And hearing this story firsthand, because she not only, and it was so hilarious when I found out and made the connection through the genealogy thing, that I'm connected to the Shawnee tribe of Tinskatawa and Tecumseh.
Okay.
Go look this stuff up. There's a book called The Shawnee Prophet, and I don't remember the author right now.
Right.
But go look it up. It's an incredible read. It talks a lot about the culture and whatnot. And I want to say it was Tinskatawa where my line comes off. It was crazy because what was like my great, I want to say there's like 5 or 6 greats or whatever. Mm-hmm. The Shawnee tribe was the most articulate, I guess, most expressive.
Right.
I want to say that when one of the neighboring tribes were ambushed and taken out by the other neighboring tribes, got blamed for the attack on one of these neighboring villages that was of a white man's settlement. So the Shawnee tribe came in for the women and children,
Right.
and apparently one of my great grandmothers or something. And I know what you're going to say when I get to this part, but it's basically the story of Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman.
Okay.
She married one of the chief's tribes. He taught her about all of these medicinal purposes for medicine that was way more advanced
Absolutely.
than modern day medicine at that point in time.
Right.
And then, all this stuff started happening. Well, the chief that she had married had got killed in one of the raids that, they were ambushed or something like that. So she took her children and herself and went back to civilization.
Right.
And was the town doc, which is almost completely unheard of back at that point in time, because she was a female and she was a doctor. But started in this other village or town or whatever it was, legitimately healing people from these medicinal things that she learned from the Native Americans that were savages.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot
Yeah.
of my story came into play of reading this. This book, the Shawnee Prophet,
Right.
which was it's an incredible story. Go read it. I encourage you to. But learning the genealogy and this stuff.
You guys got a lot of homework assignments after
yes,
watching this
go
video.
educate yourself.
Educate yourself. Don't take again. Somebody stands on a
Challenge it.
platform and says, it was this way during slavery. It was this way during JFK. It was
Right.
this way during.
Right.
It's this way during global warming. It's this way in the church. And
No.
your doctor tells you to do this, and you just blindly follow along. Then you get what you get, man.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
And it's bullshit that you're sitting there taking the advice of somebody that says, because I told you so.
Because I told you so.
That's not how
No.
it works. Challenge authority. Say, okay, fine. You told me so. Answer a couple of questions for me.
Yeah.
And if they can't do that,
Then you
say, okay, fine. Well, we're going to put a pin in it. We're going to pause this right now.
Right.
We're going to go back to the conversation when I've been able to do the due diligence. And here's the thing. You have the biggest library at the tip of your fingers.
And you still got to filter through it. We know that, but
Right.
you got the biggest library.
Right.
Come on. The
you
Library of
realize that's-
Alexandria doesn't compare to this, and that
Oh
was
my
burned and lost, dude.
God, the Library of Alexandria. I so wish.
I mean,
we
the
have a
Naga-
time machine.
That would be phenomenal. I think that's one place that I would go.
Dude, the Library of Alexandria is amazing.
Oh my God. To go back, of course, we'd have to get studied up on Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic to be able to, and Coptic to be able to read.
But dude, it was a
But,
melting
dude,
pot because there was people coming in from all over the world.
I
doing
think they did that on
transcription.
purpose. There's a conspiracy theory. I think they burned
Oh,
it on
absolutely.
purpose to suppress some
Of
things.
course.
Because you had the Gnostics at the time. You had Coptic Jews. You had a lot of other people that were
Dude,
had a lot.
Christians were burned at the stake in the city.
Does anybody know that that's what a Roman
Alexandria.
candle is?
Yes.
There's literally some fireworks over there named Roman candles on one of my shelves over there that
they were
that Vince
Christians.
bought. Okay, and the reality is, the when they say Roman candles, when you go back and study the historical, they
Yes.
used to take Christians and they would put them in a wire basket and they would douse them. They would cover them with pitch and tar and they would light them on fire. And it was literally Nero, I think, was the
Nero, yeah.
yeah, Nero was the emperor. Yeah, Caligula too, which Caligula means little boots. Look that up. It's pretty interesting. But Nero used to put the Christians in these metal enclosures, and they would cover them in tar and pitch, and they would literally light them on fire at night. And it was how they lit up the gardens that the emperors had, and that's how they did it. And it's literally so when you're lighting off a Roman candle on 4th of July or whenever it is, you got to think back and go, where did the origin of this name come from, and have a little bit of historical context going on. And that's what we're talking about, historical context, because there's a lot of arguments from authority. There's a lot of appeals to authority, whether it's global warming or government or church or doctors or history. History's a huge one. You have some history teacher up there teaching, and you don't understand. Tony was talking about the Carnegies and the men of empire from the History Channel documentary series. But they were Carnegie and what was the other two, Nate? Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, and those guys, they not only Carnegie. That was one when you were talking about Carnegie. Yeah. They literally, dude, Carnegie used to donate organs to all these churches, okay? That was part of his influence. And the big thing was he did If you go right now in Howell, where we live,
Yeah.
our Howell Public Library is a Carnegie Library.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So arguments from authority, appeals to authority is these guys came in there, and the big thing I was thinking about is history. History's written by the victors. History's written by the people who won. And you've got to sift through the bullshit and get to the stuff that's real sometimes and find out. I love watching it. I love going in and listening to documentaries on people who've educated themselves, who've discovered hidden material.
John Taylor Gatto.
Not just John Taylor Gatto is phenomenal, dude. Watch that, The Ultimate History Lesson by John Taylor Gatto. It's on YouTube. There's a couple other people, and I'm not going to mention their names because some of the things they get into is a little weird. But there's a couple guys that I've watched where they go through the history of World War II,
Yeah.
and how we actually didn't win World War II. We just came to a treaty. Yeah. And that there's actually some pictures on the boat when they're signing the treaty where our flag's upside down, sign of distress, and there's a whole bunch of shit. And you go, wait a minute, there's some validity to this. There's some, and then they talk about Vietnam and some other things like that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
how it was,
Yeah.
You know, how political it was. So when you're dealing with history, there's an appeal to authority, the same way that there's all this. It's like somebody wrote down this as an authority figure on this history. Well, wait a minute. You're an authority figure from your perspective, from your vantage point as far as the victor.
Right.
You know, it's not just that you won, but what's really going on here. And so you've got to, it doesn't take much. People think it takes too much.
You know, I've got to figure it out.
It takes a little bit to be well educated and go, wait a minute, I'm not just going to take your word for it as an authority figure and then spout this shit to somebody else. And that's what they're doing. They got an authority figure that goes,
Right.
I'm going to dictate this to you, and then you go spout it. You know, slavery was this way, and it was all the white man. I've never had enslaved anybody.
Right.
Okay, and it's like my family wasn't even here until the 1890s. So when somebody looks at me and goes, we want reparations from white people, I go,
Why?
what?
I didn't do anything.
I was not even, and the amount of people in the North that gave their lives in the Civil
Underground
War.
Railroad.
There's 600,000 people died
It was
in the
the
Civil
bloodiest
War.
war on the United States soil.
It's the bloodiest war in any war that we've been involved in.
Right.
And it's like there was all these white people on this side, and I go, come on, man. You can't just cut and dry that this white people are bad and black people are this.
Right.
And it's like, listen, I don't look at black people and go, you're bad. I got some beautiful, awesome black friends. And you know what? I don't walk up and go, you're my black friend. I go, you're my friend. I don't give a
Right.
shit what your color is, dude.
Right.
We're friends. When
It's
I go
not
see
about
Pastor
culture,
Moner,
it's not
Pastor
about
Gabi,
ethnicity, it's-
or Sister
yeah.
Crystal or any of my other, I go, you're my brother.
Right.
I don't care.
Exactly.
Now, in not caring what your skin, I'm not going to regard you, as Martin Luther King talks
Right.
about. It's like, I'm not going to
Yes.
care. Talk about the color of your skin. I'm going to regard you for your content of your character.
Yes.
And that's what I go for. And when we're dealing with a appeal to authorities, that's what we got to do. It's like, come on, man.
Let me
We
give
got to
you
get to
some
the,
food
what
for
the,
thought.
go ahead.
Okay, so I am a expert, and yes, I'm using this very tongue-in-cheek. I'm making a point here. I am an expert on comics. I love the X-Men. Okay, I should probably know more, but I love them. I know who killed JF Kennedy. It was Magneto because he curved the bullet.
Right.
Watch the movie. Talks about it all in there. Now, we all know it's bullshit.
Right. But long enough.
Right.
And all of a sudden, enough movies and enough Coca-Cola memorabilia comes out, and
Right.
Santa Claus is real.
Exactly. Of course. But that's my point, is as preposterous as it sounds, it makes for very good storytelling.
Right.
So if you're going to believe that Magneto from the X-Men killed JFK because he curved the bullet,
Right.
but he was actually trying to protect him
Yeah.
because he was trying to curve the bullet because he saw what was going on,
But he messed it up.
but he messed it up because he's human.
Right.
You know, I mean, and you're talking about two opposing forces, you know, Professor X and Magneto.
Right.
It's like you tried to kill the president. He's like, no, I was trying to protect them because I was working for the Secret Service in hopes that I could protect the president.
Exactly.
But they framed me because I'm the guy that can manipulate metal.
And again, it's like I didn't expect to veer into some of the topics that we went into, but we've educated ourselves in this.
Of course.
I've studied the Civil War. I've studied slavery.
Yes.
I've studied the Indians. You know, the conquest of the Midwest and the West and some of that stuff. And I've studied. Shit, we didn't even get into the Spanish.
Inquisition?
No, not the Inquisition. The Spanish invasion.
Oh, yeah.
And that the people coming up from the southern border that are invading that think that they have a divine right to invade. It's like, wait a minute.
Look at the
You
story of
wiped
the
out.
Alamo.
You wiped out the Incas and the Mayas.
Yes.
The Spanish came over here and wiped out entire civilizations. Millions of people you genocided
Right.
in order to take over, and now you act like, you know, you. And I don't begrudge anybody the right to live, of course, but don't get on your fucking high horse and act like you've got this
Right.
divine right to tell somebody else what to do because of this. When you go, wait a minute, far enough back in your ancestry,
Right.
there's some shady shit going on that you need to factor into this before you get on a high horse and act like your people were all. It's like, dude, I'm sure, and I've studied a lot of my
Right.
Polish ancestry, and for the most part, they just got fucked over for the last 200 years.
Well, when you look at
Every
it,
time they wanted to conquer somebody, they're like, oh.
I don't remember what Fast and Furious it was, but there was a thing that Vin Diesel was talking about. And he's like, why do you think most people in South America speak Portuguese, especially in Brazil?
Right.
Because he's like, if you look at how the history of how the Spanish came over, guns ablazing, and so on and so forth, right?
Yep.
Well, the Portuguese came over. They come over bearing gifts, mirrors and spices
Yeah.
and all kinds of other
Well,
things.
there's the famous story about the beads that they sold Long Island to the Indians sold Long Island for beads.
Right.
Yeah, so they
when
came
you
over-
have something to lose, because when they come to collect, well, we're going
Yeah.
to take your spices and your mirrors. Well, no. Well, then you're going to do what we told you to because we're the authority here. We've got the big cannons that go boom.
Right.
All right, cool. We'll do what you say. We'll speak Portuguese
and
as
then-
opposed to Spanish. And I think it's hilarious. Look at that history. Look it up.
Dude.
It is so interesting and yet so tragic for a lot of the stuff that went on in
And
history.
people don't do that.
No.
It's like,
Christopher Columbus was an asshole and a piece of shit rapist.
absolutely.
I'm just throwing that out there. And why we have a Columbus Day is fucking stupid.
Why did Amerigo Vespucci, when he was drawing up the maps,
Right.
just go, I'm going to put my name on it? Amerigo. America. You go, you didn't discover shit.
Dude,
Why
Lutz
don't you put
Erickson was what, in 1025, 12?
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's evidence of the. I mean, if you look at it, dude, it's like ridiculous that they go, oh, we didn't even know that there was another continent. Bullshit, you didn't know.
Yeah.
They knew all the time, dude. If you go from, I mean, if you look at a map and go from Iceland to Greenland, dude, there were settlements all over the fucking place up
Yeah.
there. And it's like, come on. And then the fact that the Indians that were here, the original people, were not the original people. They
No.
came over on the land bridge through the Bering
Bering
Straits.
Strait, yes.
It's like, dude, come on, man. It's all this shit. We start to get so complicated. It's like, wait a minute.
Do the due diligence and educate yourself. Don't be afraid to challenge authority
Dude.
when they give you the phrase of "because I told you so" or some incarnation of that. If they can't go, well, wait a minute, maybe you're onto something here. I'm going to get back to you on
I don't
that.
want to be right.
Right.
I want to be well educated.
Thank you.
In the process of being right.
Thank you in the process.
And people
of that.
sometimes they get to a point where I just, well, I'm right. I'm right. Are you?
Since
Or are you just appealing to authority and some guy said this and some guy, what have you studied in your thing? It's like, I want to be right,
Right.
because I've self-educated myself. I've gone through the process. I don't want to be right because I just took it hook, line, and sinker. There's shit that I watch right now. I watch, it's not AMC, it's ACE, American Military Channel. Is that what it is? American Military Channel?
Sure.
And they do a lot of stuff on Hitler and Stalin and stuff like that.
Sure.
And they're doing archive. And I'll watch some of those programs and I go, there's some things in there where I'm like, you know, it's like 90% right on the money, and there's like that 10% that I go,
Not quite sure this is lining up with
yeah,
history.
exactly. It's like, you know, but I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that's really good when they talk about how Hitler really didn't write Mein Kampf. He kind of plagiarized
adapted it.
He adapted it from a cellmate and put it out as his own shit, put his name on it. You know, I mean, and there's just little things like that. It's like, but the point is are we, at the end of the day, are we appealing to authority? Because an authority figure says slavery went down this way, is that what we're doing? Or did you study it? You know? If I was a slave, dude, and I was brutalized and I was taken advantage
Right.
of, the last fucking thing that I'm gonna do is walk out of that environment and keep my last name of the motherfucker that was abusing me. I'm gonna walk out of there and I'm gonna have my own name. And the reality is, the vast majority of people that came from slavery, okay, no matter it may have not been perfect, it may not have been, and I'm not. And people are gonna be fucking pissed at me because I'm talking about this. So, but it's fine. This is out of my brain because I love, dude. I don't fucking
What's
care.
the name of the show again? Sorry.
This is my brain.
Oh, this is your brain.
It's my brain.
I
And so-
love the contextual part that Eddie Murphy talks about on what was it, Raw or Delirious? I can't remember.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, you got these brothers in the ghetto, and so on and so forth. They're going, I'd like to see a white man, this motherfucker suck my dick, crack that whip. You're like, oh, yes, sir, master, fuck you. And yet, he's like, no, that's not how it went down at all. He's like, they come off the boat, they're like, all right, cool, whatever. I need you to go pick this cotton. And, no, man, fuck you. And the dude standing behind it, all right, we'll pick the cotton, we're cool. But it was funny because
the
if
amazing
you look
thing,
at that.
dude. The amazing thing is, you've studied Solzhenitsyn, the Gulag Archipelago,
Oh, yeah.
right? And they said if we would have, they came for our neighbors and we didn't do anything.
Right.
They came for our other neighbors, we didn't do anything. They came
Right.
for this people, and he said, and by the time they came for us,
Right.
we were totally disarmed. And if we, and they said, he says in there, the translation, because it was written in Russian,
Right.
he says, if we had known, if we would have just have stood our ground,
Right.
some of us would have died.
Right.
But if we would have just stood our ground
Right.
at the time that they came for us,
Yes.
we could have defeated them. And that's the thing about it too, is it's like the slaves outnumbered the slave owners 10, sometimes 20 to 1.
One. Oh, dude.
And it's like, so what was really going on?
Right.
What was really happening there? And you can't fault, because you get that we call it the Stockholm scenario, where you begin
Right.
to love your captors, and you begin,
course.
and there's
And
always
that's real stuff. That's
that's
not
real stuff.
made up.
And there's always going to be some horrible, just bastard fucking people that want to control other people. I mean,
Absolutely.
we're going to get into that in another episode. 'Cause We're going
Yes.
to talk about what the real root of slavery and the globalist control and all this other shit is about. It's about controlling other people. We were given a mandate in the garden
Yes.
through the Lord told Adam. He says, "I give you dominion over the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, the livestock, everything that creeps on the ground, and
Yes.
I give you dominion over that." He never said, "I give you dominion over your offspring, over other men."
Right.
Right? And that's the true wickedness in the world.
Right.
Is when men try to have dominion over other men. You can have dominion over your environment. And when you're even talking about I think of that when you talking about life coaching.
Yeah.
When you're talking about just being, it's like, look at our politicians. They want to rule and represent and do all their shit, and they want to do all their stuff, but
Right.
they don't want to take care of their own lives. They got mistresses, they got all sorts of shit going on in their lives, and they don't got their own lives together. And at the end of the day, I go, that's what the core of this is. It's
Right.
a perversion of the
Right.
dominion that we were given. Slavery and the resulting Civil War was dominion, and most people don't realize. It's like, do you realize what the 14th Amendment did?
Thank you.
It didn't free the slaves.
Right.
It transferred ownership to the District of Columbia. Do your due diligence. That's why you got a fucking Social Security card.
Read
Now,
it.
Social Security card didn't come into effect later, but read the 14th Amendment. It just simply transferred your ownership. Dude, come on.
Right.
You got to be educated about this shit. When you think that people who live on welfare and all this other shit, that they're free, come on.
Here's the thing that I have to laugh about the Constitution. Okay, so you've got your. It doesn't matter with all of the stuff that people believe, whether you're Republican, Democrat,
It's all just
Tea
fucking
Party,
titles, dude,
whatever.
to make divisions.
It's stupid bullshit. Here's the great thing about the Constitution on a fundamental level, that our forefathers had enough foresight at the age of 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old.
Oh, they were highly educated as young people.
Here's the great part about this.
That's another topic.
They realize that it is my constitutional right to be a dumbass, and if you follow the Constitution, for you to defend my right to be a dumbass.
Yeah.
Vice versa.
I'm going to defend your right to be a dumbass.
Right.
As long as you don't fuck with my stuff, we're
Right.
good.
And that's the thing, is your rights end at the tip of my nose.
Right.
My rights end at the tip of your nose.
Right.
So guess what? As constitutionalists,
Yeah.
we have the right to defend each other to be a dumbass.
Right.
If that's the law of the land,
That's
which
the law of the land.
it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just the same way that I would never want to see a black person in slavery. I don't want to see a white person being told that they got to repay something that happened 150 years ago that they had no. I wasn't there.
Right.
I had no responsibility. You weren't there, and it's like
Is it sad what happened?
It's like, and the
Absolutely.
tribalism starts to get muddy. It starts to get all fucked up because it's like the authority figures
Right.
want to divide and conquer. That's their number one fucking thing is divide and conquer. So
As a leader, as a person who does the best of the ability to go through and educate and enlighten people,
yeah,
if you're not helping to empower them and helping to build resiliency,
to
knowledge, education, wisdom, all of these things to go, okay, what did you learn today?
right.
You know, next day comes around. What'd you learn today?
Right.
Are you the same person you were at the beginning of this week that you are now? That you've had a little bit more education and saw things in a little different perspective.
Right.
You know, we're not here to manipulate each other. We're here to go through and
Dude,
educate.
get educated. Be educated. Don't
For the
take-
love of God, pick up a book, call a
Dude,
friend, do a
some-
search on the internet.
do some real education of yourself.
Instead of watching porn and stupid fail videos on YouTube, go read the fucking Constitution.
That's what it's. That's that mindless shit's there to keep you.
And I'm all for that. I watch porn and mindless fail videos on YouTube. But if I'm on a quest in the morning to go, I'm going to educate myself today.
Right.
I'm going to put the porn and the fail YouTube videos off to the
Oh my
side.
God, he said he watches porn.
Whatever. So what? The point being is that I'm going to educate myself.
Right.
If I'm refreshing myself on,
Yeah.
okay, what does the 12th Amendment say in the Constitution?
Right.
I don't know
Right.
off the top of my head.
What's the Bill of Rights?
Right.
Those 10 Bill of Rights, but there were actually 12 proposed and only
Right.
10 got ratified. And it's like, dude, to be educated. So, appeal to authority.
Yes.
It just means that you're using someone else's position as an authority figure to bolster your argument, and you haven't done the due diligence yourself.
Right.
Go do the due diligence yourself.
Please do the due diligence
Dude,
yourself.
I mean, it's like discover it for yourself. You're going to have a joy into the discovery, and you're going to be educated. And it may rock your world. It may shock your preconceived notions and some of your long held beliefs that were comfortable for a time. But we got to get to a place where we're uncomfortable for a season so that we can figure out what the truth is to the best of our discovery, the best of our abilities.
It
So
would behoove you to educate yourself before someone else does.
absolutely. Yeah, because I don't want to stand there one day and have everything burn up and go, Lord, the Lord say, everything that you did was shit.
Yeah, it's frivolous.
But you made it. And I go, no, I want to make sure that what I'm doing, that's part of what this is,
Right.
is I'm going, you know what? This is cut and dry. This is me.
Right.
Okay? No filter. This is me. I'm going to still teach about Jesus, do all that stuff.
Right.
So this has been my brain. Mr. Tony Bradley is my number one earwig joining me. I think we had a great discussion on appeal to authority.
I just had a bug fall in my head.
This is literally a bug. You are the earwig, bro.
Yeah. And apparently he's going for a swim.
There you go. In the water. Nice. So with that, we are going to sign off for this episode. And I hope I didn't offend you too much. But, Jesus said if you're offended, it might have been necessary. Because I
Right.
want to shock you out of your position and have you be well educated. And we can disagree. That's fine. I still love you.
It's okay to
know,
agree to disagree.
It's like, let's do that. So have a great life. Self-educate, get some information. You've got a wealth of information at your fingertips. Get educated. Don't take my word for it. Don't take his word for it. Don't take one single authority, one single channel's
Yeah.
authority for it, one single,
Diversify your
Yeah.
education.
yeah. Get well-rounded. Read some stupid stuff, read some good stuff, and then find the middle ground in that. Go from there. All right, thanks. This has been my brain.
This is my brain.
Dad, that's an egg.
Yeah, that's an egg.
Honey,
Dude.
that's an egg.
Seriously.
Yeah,
That's an egg.
It's a metaphor.
yeah, but that's an egg.
That's an egg.
All right, Jeremy, I hate to break it to you. That's an egg.
I know my brain is not actually an egg, okay? It's a metaphor.
Metaphor or not, that's not your brain.
It's just an egg.
Una cerveza para mí. My egg is my brain.
It's still an egg.
Can I at least have some bacon, maybe some sausage with that egg, though?
Oh, I want some bacon.
I don't know, man. I'm not good at this shit.
I want crepes.
Can I
Okay.
have some bacon and pancakes with that egg?
I'll take it with scrambled eggs and cheese.